Well, greetings, Imagination Connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and of course, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your Archbishop of Banterbury, I forgot to put that picture up, your Chancellor of Cheerfulness, and your Pharaoh of Physical Media. But lest we not forget, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett, coming at you! Robcasting at you Imagination Connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. It is Robservations number 580. Now, there's something there's something I wanted to say in my Shatner impressions or whatever. You know, whenever you make something, whether it's a film, a book, piece of art, television, whatever, people are going to comment on it. And I think, and criticize it, and talk about it, and discuss it. To make something and to put it out there is to, in fact, you have to assume that you're going to be criticized. Now, one of the things about people that are just starting out, actually, it never goes away, but when you've written your first screenplay, you've printed it out, you know, and you get it in your hand, and you feel the weight, you got your brads in the holes. Remember, 2 brads, not 3. 2. You put a brad in the middle hole, people know you're not professional. Just saying. By the way, 12-point courier, always 12-point courier. And on that title page, also 12-point courier. Maybe put your title in bold, or if you want to give it an underline, that's it. That's it. No 15-point or 20-point courier with the title. I know. You must resist. You must resist the temptation. But anyway, so you make it. And you think you've done something great, and then you don't want to hear any criticism. I know what it's like. You just want to hear people tell you what you've done is great because there's the incredible sense of accomplishment. But people will always be critical. I've been critical. You know, I've been a professional critic. I've written for a magazine. I was a professional critic. I criticized things on this show. Well, I myself am certainly not beyond criticism. And normally my whole philosophy about getting criticized is that you have to let the work speak for itself. If you start answering every critic, every sling that is with a rock and every arrow that is thrown your way, the slings and arrows, you'll go crazy because there's a lot of, you can never defend yourself entirely. And also there are people that like criticizing you. Certainly there's a lot of people that like to criticize me, because I certainly, my persona is not designed to appeal to the broadest possible audience. However, there are times when I have been criticized where I do feel it is unfair, but that usually comes out of the fact that there are people that are unaware of this community that we're trying to build here, the community that I didn't know I was building, but now that I feel that it has built, you guys built it. Like I said, I was just a host hosting the party, and everybody else walked through the door. And like as what happens with a great party, this community has grown and evolved because of you people, you Imagination Connoisseurs, and I have felt protective of that community. It was something that I didn't even realize was going to happen. I thought, I'll just talk on YouTube, but it hasn't been exactly that way. It's surprised even me. Well, one of the things, like I've read a lot that my opening with these graphics and these nicknames that I throw out. Somebody was saying to me the other day, "Don't you think you sound a little full of yourself?" And the funny thing, and I said to this person, I said, I didn't make up those nicknames. They were hung on me by the community that is you. They were hung on me by Imagination Connoisseurs. I didn't commission this artwork. It was given to me by you Imagination Connoisseurs, the community. I didn't pay for it. It was bestowed upon me. And I figured by using them at the beginning, by using these nicknames and use the artwork, it's supposed to be fun. And I'm also supposed to show right at the top of the show that I don't take myself entirely seriously. Ultimately, this show is supposed to be amusing and fun to watch. And I'm supposed to have a fun, amusing time putting it on. But it was interesting to me that some people don't see it that way. And it reiterates the fact that everybody comes at things from a different angle. There are some people that think me even doing a YouTube show is ridiculous, which I can understand. But I mean, I could be sitting right now drinking beer, watching football, or building a model kit, or playing with my action figures, or rearranging these shelves, or something that I like to do. And I like to do all those things, you know. But I'm here doing the show because I have fun, and I like connecting with people. And this show, ultimately, the purpose of this show is to entertain and hopefully make you smile. I might say things that piss you off, but I'm hopefully doing it in such a way that, after all, this isn't, the McNeil-Lehrer report. This isn't, a PBS Frontline documentary on farm pollution and wherever. I mean, this is supposed to be a fun show, and I thought it was apparent that my tongue is always firmly in my cheek. I bring a sense of bemusement to the world. If anyone asks me if you could use one word to sum up your philosophy of life, what would it be? I would say, well, wonderment first, but I would say that my entire philosophy of life is a combination of awe, wonder, and bemusement, ultimately. I mean, despite that human folly, the horrors that have been perpetrated by mankind throughout the centuries and the millennia are obviously indefensible, but I understand that's the great struggle of whatever life there is in the universe. The great struggle on this planet is for us, the dominant species on this planet, to figure out a balance between one another, ourselves, and the natural surroundings and the natural order that we're a part of. And it is going to be a struggle that is going to occupy our species probably until our sun burns out or goes nova, whichever comes first. Maybe it'll turn into a black hole and we'll all get sucked over the event horizon. But it's very funny because there's a lot of people out there who want to make it personal if I rip on Star Trek Discovery. I've got a few letters that said, Rob, why don't you talk to us about what you love about Star Trek? And what's funny is I forget when I do things like the Inglorious Treksperts podcast, I always thought that my love of the Star Trek franchise was readily apparent there. And the work that I've done over the years, whether it's Free Enterprise, whether it was the CBS documentaries, but a lot of the time it's not, because you can't expect people to know all about you. They might only know you've said one thing. They're like, that guy's a douchebag. Have you heard what he's saying about ongoing anger about Star Trek Discovery? I am actually angry. I have a genuine anger and disappointment at where the Star Trek franchise is at this point. Actually, a lot of modern, as a fan of storytelling, and as somebody who understands that stories are also a product of the time in which they are told, it is disappointing to me, and it will continue to be disappointing to me, because we have so many great stories being told right now. And I would hope that my favorite franchise at least lives up to my standards. There's a lot of people that are enjoying Star Trek Discovery, and a lot of people say to me, Rob, when you say that you don't like Star Trek Discovery, I hear you saying that I shouldn't like Star Trek Discovery. And what I've tried to explain to people is that I am not saying that at all. I am saying that in general, I do believe over the continuum of all the stories that human history has given to us, I think that Star Trek Discovery is being written from a place that is not true to the stories themselves. And I think all great storytelling, whether it's in whatever form, whether you're watching a ballet or an operetta, or you're watching a TV show or a movie, or you're reading a book, that the truth of stories is self-evident to the reader on many different levels. Now, that's not to say that you can't enjoy crass commercialism, or you cannot enjoy forays into people who are trying to necessarily preach to you, because look, a good message I think is important. I think it's important that we teach one another things, and I think storytelling is our most potent form of conveying messages and thoughts and concepts to people. Because anybody, look, our racial differences, our sexual differences, our political differences, our regional differences, whatever our differences are as people, we will all, for the most part, forget those differences and sit down and enjoy the story that is presented to us. And I think there's power in that. I've talked about how in a movie theater, one of the great things about the movie theaters is because most people love movies, when you come into a movie, you are not paying attention to the people around you. Even the most racist fucks will sit next to people that they'll march against or pillory online or, burn crosses in their front yards. Those people will come into a room full of all kinds of people. But if they're going to watch Avengers Infinity War, they'll sit down and they'll forget whatever their problems are with their fellow mankind and enjoy the story that's told to them. And I think that's an amazing situation, that you can get so many disparate people together in one room and all agree to stop whatever it is that they personally are dealing with, and they'll sit down and watch Avengers Endgame. There is a great power in this. And to have an audience of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who are going to sit down in front of a TV or a movie screen, but let's say streaming since we're talking about TV, it's the same thing. Give themselves over to a story. They're not... if they're watching Walter White or Tony Soprano or the Lannister family or the crew of the Enterprise or the Discovery, they'll sit down for that amount of time and they'll forget everything else and concentrate on the story that's being told to them, which is why I think great storytellers are really important. People that can tell resonant stories that move beyond the time in which they're told and reach out past the decades and become timeless. And we've seen evidence of that. William Shakespeare is certainly evidence of that. A lot of our Greek myths are evidence of that, Greek and Roman mythology. There's pick your poison. There's novelists. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, almost 2 centuries later, continues to resonate. And the great stories live on. And I think that for whatever reason, the original Star Trek series, for me, touched me as a child and has stayed resonant to me my whole life for whatever reason. And that's kind of what I expect from Star Trek Discovery. But, so I don't mind being criticized by the work that I'm doing here and the work we've done together. All the people that take the time to write in and sharing of themselves. Every time I read someone's letter, they put themselves out there. They're opening themselves up for criticism in our live chat and on the boards. And that takes courage and conviction. And I think that's, if nothing else, this program is about sharing our love and enthusiasm for storytelling, mostly through film and television, but also through novels and comics, graphic novels, video games. We are imagination connoisseurs, and we love storytelling. People might not like me so much, but this community stands for that. It stands for intellectual rigor. It stands for taking the time to tell great stories. And then when we get those great stories, we appreciate them. And if we don't get those great stories and we're disappointed by those great stories that aren't so great, we discuss them. And that's what this channel is about. And again, I just wanted to point out, you can come after me personally all you want. I have no problem with that. But what I don't like is when people come after the community that we're trying to build here, and they come after all of you. And when I open this show with artwork and names that people have given me, I hope, it was my intent to announce the program as being fun, it's kind of silly, and yet it undercuts when I go off on a high horse about Star Trek or something. I hope it all works together to keep everything entertaining and fun. But I wanted to reiterate that point and just say, look, anybody can write me a letter. I will read the letters that you send me, as long as they're competently written. I'm getting more letters than ever, so it's really difficult. It's impossible for me to now read every letter I get. But if you would like to dissent, if you do not appreciate something I've said, or if there's something you would like to confront me directly about, whether it's a political view, whether it's a view about Star Trek, whether it's a review about the fact that I love Star Crash and how can I then judge other films, I invite anybody to come on. If they can convince me, a lot of people can't do this. They just can't speak online extemporaneously or whatever. But I am open to all kinds of criticism, but I would just appreciate it if people remember that if you want to hate on me, please do. But the members of this community, they're imagination connoisseurs, and they're here on their own. And, I am protective of the community that we've built here. Just thought I would say that to start this show. I thought it was important to do that. And now we'll jump into some news that we've been covering here. And I want to start it first. This is sort of interesting. We've been talking about Alan Dean Foster, obviously brought to the world's attention that since Disney bought Fox, that the royalty payments he was receiving from the novels he's written about Fox properties such as Star Wars, since Disney took over, he wasn't getting paid. And that's not cool. Not cool at all, especially because it's Alan Dean Foster. But that story is developing further, and I just wanted to throw that out real quickly and talk about it. Star Wars writers among authors missing Disney royalty payments for novelizations, a report. Bruce Haring posted this yesterday on Deadline. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, authors of Star Wars novels received royalty checks for their work, but that practice apparently ended around 2012. Now the Empire is poised to strike back as a group action by authors of these Star Wars adaptations and other franchises are going public. They claim that Disney has refused to pay royalties on book contracts since it absorbed Lucasfilm in a 2012 deal for $4 billion, according to the Wall Street Journal. These writers say Disney has either delayed dealing with their complaints or stiffed them on checks that rarely total a few $1,000s apiece. This is not a lot of money. But these, listen, if you want to become a famous author, you're not writing tie-in fiction. You're not doing that. It's born out of love. And the fact that a lot of these writers are still having their books sold is something that I think Disney should be happy about because it just bolsters the value of the franchise. And when we're talking about a few $1,000s, if that, of royalty payments, aren't you buying enough cachet to have those books in every bookstore? I mean, you walk into a bookstore, you see Star Wars sections if you look in science fiction, and they're always there. And they're keeping up. It's free advertising because this work exists. Isn't it worth paying those authors? These writers say Disney has either delayed dealing with their complaints or stiffed them on the checks that rarely total a few $1,000s apiece, and the Star Wars franchise isn't the only source of trouble. The Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America Association claims other authors of books tied to projects from Indiana Jones to Buffy the Vampire Slayer came forward with similar stories of non-payment, all under similar circumstances to the Star Wars issue. Once Disney acquired the properties, the checks were no longer in the mail. The Wall Street Journal reports say divining how much money may be owed is complicated as sales and royalties for the books involved have fluctuated wildly over time. A Disney spokesman told the Wall Street Journal, "We are carefully reviewing whether any royalty payments may have been missed as a result of acquisition integration and will take appropriate remedial steps if that is the case." At least half a dozen writers across a range of Disney-owned properties have reported that no checks have been received, said Mary Robinette-Kowal, president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. I think that's important because one of the things that we're dealing with and what we've always dealt with is that the creators of this material are always at odds with the financiers. The financiers and the studios and the publishers, they're always here to make money. Working in the independent film world, there's nobody better at screwing their creators than the indie film world. Nobody. And they'll figure out 10 ways till Sunday and back again to do it. And it's incredibly frustrating and very disheartening when you really find out how much people made off their hard work, years of hard work, because they certainly weren't making any money while they were working on these projects. And then when an independent distributor picks them up, you as a filmmaker think, oh my God, this is tremendous. Not only is my film going to get seen, but maybe I'll make a few shekels in the interim to tide me over. And you quickly find out that unless you've made a film that becomes some kind of zeitgeist movie like a Kevin Smith Clerks or Sex, Lies, and Videotape or what's another example? Swingers. a movie made for a couple $100,000, it sells to Miramax for $5 million, and it establishes the careers of Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. I mean, there are ways to get around the fact that we're not getting paid, but for the most part, a lot of the time, these creators, and some of them, they've gotten older. They wrote these books 40 years ago, and having them fully in print always is a nice, it's like getting a stimulus check. And normally when you've worked on something like Star Wars, you know that those stimulus checks will continue to roll in because people keep reading the novelization of the original Star Wars that Alan Dean Foster wrote. So it was not written by George Lucas. And I think it's, look, I hope Disney does the right thing. It's disheartening to think that they buy this property, but they don't understand that a lot has come along with it. And a lot of great people have worked on the franchise. But, maybe Disney will come through and people will get their checks. And I think it'll go a long way. I mean, one of the things that you have to give it up for Kevin Feige and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at the end crawl of all the Marvel movies, now I don't know if anyone gets any, I'm not aware of any royalty payments or things like that, but I've mentioned before on the show that they have the creators of those characters that they're mining for the movies. They're acknowledging those characters. In the case of Thanos, Thanos' creator, Jim Starlin, and I would always like to say that Thanos is an adjunct of the Lord High Papal from his Vanth Dreadstar stories. Dreadstar was similar, but he was in Endgame. Jim Starlin, the creator of Thanos, was in Endgame in a bit part. Len Wein was in Days of Future Past. So we are seeing the honor. Those creators are honored. I don't know if they're monetarily honored, but they're at least being recognized. And they appear in the credits of all the Marvel movies, which I always thought was a very classy move on Marvel's part. And that was, I'm sure, again, the people running Marvel, the MCU, Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, and Victoria Alonso, there's a reason why they're as successful as they are. And I think part of it is the consideration they give to the material. And now that we have The Mandalorian is certainly, they're touching on EU things. I think it's only right. So hopefully we'll see our beloved writers and creators who have created such wonderful work over the years get recognized. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the ongoing struggle of movies. Wonder Woman opened in offshore markets, and this is not an indicator of the quality of Wonder Woman. I'm not here to pillory the movie Wonder Woman, which I haven't seen. What I'm more interested in is the box office, the health of the worldwide box office, and where movies are going. This is the beginning of a new era for Warner Brothers and for, I think, all studios. We're going to be looking at this. All of us are going to be looking at this very closely. I mean, I'm not a studio, but anybody interested in the movie business, which I am, but studios themselves, and we should all, as movie fans, be aware of what it is that is happening with film releases. As we all know, HBO Max and Warner Media decided unilaterally to open movies day and date, both in the theaters and on HBO Max. They were the first studio to do this. It's caused quite the stir in the entertainment business, but now we're going to see the beginning of the results of that strategy. And they were hoping that while HBO Max is not everywhere around the world, it's pretty much so far domestic, but it's going to spread out. But that maybe the foreign dollars would be able to offset, or maybe movies would do, as well as they always did. But we're still in a global pandemic, so this news does not. I don't think the sky is falling, but it's not great. Wonder Woman 84 Lassos $38.5 million in offshore debut. China cuffs expectations. International box office. Nancy Tartaglione wrote this on the 20th today at 10 a.m. in the morning. Sunday update. Warner Brothers DC's Wonder Woman 1984 in 32 international box office markets this weekend has opened to an estimated $38.5 million from 30,221 screens. This is well below the $60 million the industry was expecting ahead of the weekend, and is partly down to a soft China debut of $18.8 million. There were also sudden market closures over the past several days, which did not help. There were, however, strong results out of Latin America, with all ranking number 1 and marking the widest industry release for 2020 in like-for-likes. I mean, that's good. So clearly Wonder Woman, people are liking the movie. Unfortunately, it's the situation that the industry finds itself in, specifically exhibition, not ideal. Saturday update, things are not looking up for Wonder Woman 1984 in China, and mixed with ongoing uncertainty in other markets, this is driving the Offshore opening weekend estimate well lower than where the industry saw it coming into the session. The Warner Brothers DC sequel had roughly a 23% increase in China on Saturday for an estimated $14.2 million in the market through today. As we noted yesterday, this is coming in lower than expected, with social and critical scores below the previous movie, which opened to about $38 million and went on to gross $90.5 million in the Middle Kingdom. The hoped-for Saturday family bump did not materialize, and this is pushing the full weekend launch down to around $35 million at the international box office, give or take. China overall is a bit sluggish this frame and is led by local title The Rescue, $26.6 million through Saturday, but Wonder Woman 84's performance remains somewhat confounding. China box office has bounced back well from the pandemic, so it doesn't seem coronavirus is the culprit here. There is online chatter about marketing not having been sufficient. As we understand it, in China, there was a Power of Wonder campaign that asked people to share inspirational messages on social with a chance to win prizes and see the messages used in digital outdoor and bus stop creatives, as well as a virtual premiere event in 5 cinemas with talent able to speak directly with the fans before they watch the film. Special screenings hosted by authors and influencers were also organized to create additional content about the impact this year has had on the wonder power needed to get through. But these initiatives have evidently not translated to turnstiles. Wonder Woman 84 is also debuting this weekend in another 31 offshore markets, including the UK, Spain, Taiwan, Japan, Brazil, and Mexico. Not likely to help matters for the Patty Jenkins-directed superheroic pick is the shutdown of cinemas in Mexico City from today for another 3 weeks. And just within the last few hours, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has issued new stay-at-home orders covering London and much of the south and east of England. Cinemas in London were already a no-go zone. As noted yesterday, many in exhibition questioned the international rollout on Wonder Woman 84 given ongoing uncertainty over the pandemic's effects on movie theaters. Still, as noted yesterday, it would have been difficult to predict that nearly all of the European majors would be closed down this weekend. Warner Brothers will report international box office figures on Sunday and will report back with more analysis. We're just not ready. The world is just not ready. We are not in a secure position. We now have the rollout with the vaccines, the Moderna vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine. Even those vaccines, I mean, they were rushed to market. Apparently they're safe, but people are having allergic reactions. Once you start going out with millions of people, you're going to have a lot more varied reactions than they had in their clinical studies. So on one hand, I really do appreciate the situation the exhibition and the movie business finds themselves in. It's unprecedented and it's bad. And with this backlog of $200 million movies that are expected to gross $1 billion, they can't just sit on shelves. The studios, not only are they not making money, they're shelling money out to pay for the interest costs on the budgets of these movies. So I get it. And when you're Warner Brothers, you have 17 movies locked and loaded and you're paying out on. And they got to do something. You know, they've got to stop the hemorrhaging of the cash. They've got to pay off their notes, their VIG, even though it's not a VIG, but I just want to say that. I just think that it's something. I get it. I understand what's happening, but I don't know if you're doing more harm than good by putting these movies out theatrically and then having disappointing results. I mean, I think in a way maybe that's what AT&T wants. So, eventually it's going to be streaming only, and won't they be happy? But it's frustrating. So Wonder Woman is not having a bang-up opening in China. I just think that we're not ready, man. We're not ready to open up the movies. I don't know what to say. That's all I can say. I don't think we are ready. I don't think the industry is ready, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Now back to you guys. What's going on? This comes from Garen. Garen says, "Hi. Just wanted to say I mostly enjoy your shows. Sometimes the title entices me, but the title subject is buried somewhere in the video and it's hard to find. A few markers might help. I watch a lot of YouTube content similar to yours, and I'm sure you've heard of most of them, and one series I've never heard anyone review is a one-season wonder out of South Africa called Charlie Jade. That's interesting. It was originally aired in 2005 in many different parts of the world and made it to the Sci-Fi Channel in 2007. It's probably the best story ever based on the multi-universe theory. Knowing how difficult it is to follow these types of stories, not knowing what universe a scene might be taking place in, they address this problem by using different colored film stock for each universe. Ooh, that's really cool. If the scene has a greenish tint to it, it's one universe, while another may have a bluish tint. The series is available on Amazon Prime, and there are 20 episodes. While it is only a single season, it wraps up the story nicely while leaving an opening for another season. Also, compared to what is called a series these days, The Mandalorian with 8 half-hour episodes, it's the equivalent of a current-day series with 3 seasons. I'm suggesting this series to you since I think it's something you would really enjoy. Knowing that you did just do a review of another one-season wonder, The Prisoner, I think this might be right up your alley. God, I watched The Prisoner as a little boy with my parents when it originally aired, and it was the first series I got from Netflix on DVD back in the day. I like the way you did that with Az, sort of like a book club review, and I think watching Charlie Jade with another reviewer would be just as entertaining. No matter what you decide, please give this series a try. If you're not hooked after just one episode, then I'll admit openly that I don't have a clue about what is good and what is shite. The first episode might remind you a bit of Blade Runner, but the story is totally original. I hope you enjoy this series, Garen. You know what? Garen, what a great letter, first of all. Really appreciate it. I've never heard of this series. Let me put it in the live chat. If you have, write in, tell me. This series is called Charlie Jade. It is South African. It's from 2005. I think that link will take you to information about that series. I love when people write in letters to me like this. There's nothing I love more than learning something new. And I think one of the great byproducts, certainly of like Netflix, is the fact that they do have so many shows from around the world. You do find things like Dark and Money Heist and all the other shows that you can delve into. And there's a lot I've never heard of before, and you just don't know. The Kingdom, the Korean period zombie series. I mean, when would we have ever got that? And I think one of the great wonders of our streaming age, I can't get enough, is when you find out about shows that you've never heard of. So I want to thank you very much for writing in. What a great letter. So thank you for that, Garen. Let's see. This one comes from Doc Vader. Doc Vader writes in, "Hello, Rob. Greetings to all. The holiday is once upon us. And yes, as Mike F. mentioned in the Metro Manila Film Festival, which starts on Christmas Day. Honestly, I've not watched any entry from the festival in the theater since 1998, when all the students were required to watch Rizal. The film was a biography of our national hero, Jose Rizal, so it was one of the rare times it was standing room only just to watch a biopic. Wow. Anyhow, the film festival, despite it being a front to promote Filipino films, has not survived without controversy. Mostly controversies stem on awards night or on Gabi Ng Parangal. I'm not sure what that is. All I can say is there are a lot of sore losers, undeserving winners, a lot of sore losers, underserving winners, snubs, and industry people looking for a catfight. Sounds fun to me. A lot of walkouts have happened on awards night that every year one such was highly likely. The problem relies on the festival format itself, with commercial movies mixed with the mediocre, the indies, and the masterpieces. All the films are up for awards, and twice in the festival's history that they did not hand out awards for Best Picture, as none were worthy enough. Oddly, as well as giving only one award for all the actors and actresses with Best Performer, to the chagrin of an actress who is predicted by hack psychics to win. Handing out the Best Picture award for the top box office grosser, in where you can just see how the organizers were all for the money. Year in and year out, these box office hits are movies laced with a lot of not-so-subtle ads of products endorsed by its movie stars, hence a commercial. That also alluded to a year when the festival lineup were all indies. That box office did not do well, and a lot of movies were pulled out of theaters in favor of entries that had more potential to do well. While it was a success in giving a voice to other filmmakers, a lot of the backlash from others, especially a senator who lambasted that the festival requires these commercial movies because it's too ingrained in Filipino culture to go out and watch these cash cows during the holiday season. Too much politics, I say, but it does not help that the same senator has a movie star brother in where the movie was sidetracked for the festival and had to release a month earlier. Funny, one awards night was being done instantly, just proclaiming the winners as the venue was booked for a concert the same night. Furthermore, a director returning his award as he felt undeserving with the studio cut of his movie being beyond recognition, and a movie entry where animal activists were in an uproar where a dog was killed for the movie. Wait a minute. They really killed a dog for a movie? Come on now. Finally, amidst all, one event stands out. Several people whom the press called the Film Fest 7 conspired that the wrong names were announced as winners for the Best Actor and Actress Award. The manager of the actor was named its mastermind and was admitted guilty when faced by charges pressed by the mayor of Manila. No one was sent to jail, and currently all of that were indicted, sans one still in the industry. So there you have it. I hope you find this interesting and looking forward to the Intergalactic Imagination Conisseurs Film Festival success, and may I find the courage to join in its next iteration. Yours, Sithly, Doc Vader. Well, I love hearing about Manila. I love hearing about this Philippines film festival politicking. I mean, I don't know anything about that. I've seen so few Philippine films in my life, but I've seen some. And there's still a Filipino horror movie I really want to see, and now I'm forgetting the name of it. But I love hearing about it from you. I love hearing takes from around the world. You know, I think are some of my favorite things I get on this show, having people from all over the world talk to me. I love it. It's fantastic, and I learned so much. So I didn't realize the world of Filipino awards films is such a backbiting nest of vipers, but it's kind of fun to hear about that. Now, as far as the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival goes, a lot of people waited until obviously the last minute to submit their movies. Even on the first, I gave them an extra 15 days. So what I'm doing, I'm behind in terms of getting even all the films onto the website and going through them and watching them and considering them. So since I did add 15 days to the festival, and I've reached out to a few filmmakers, but everybody's so busy, what I really want to do is when I present the semi-finalists, I want to be able to try and talk to the filmmakers first. So I'm gonna push back the announcement of the semi-finalists. So not on Christmas Day. We're gonna wait until the new year. And when I get all the films up, which will be before Christmas, I'm going to get everything up. I'm going to spend the next 2 or 3 weeks promoting the films. We're going to take out Facebook ads. We're going to drop the trailer around. I want to get eyeballs on these movies. I want to make sure that all the filmmakers that took the time to make films, I want to see all these films have thousands and thousands of views, not a few hundred. And it's my responsibility to make sure that the work that these filmmakers have done gets seen. So we'll talk more about that later. I was going to make a separate video about the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival because, as you've seen, a lot of these entries that have come in are really strong. As a matter of fact, there's Something in the Silence. I heard some very nice feedback. That was the last movie I put up on Friday. If you haven't watched There's Something in the Silence, now when I say I like these movies, this is not me endorsing one movie over another. I'm speaking about these movies, just about them. I'm not comparing or contrasting them with any other film in the festival, but There's Something in the Silence is 8 minutes, and it's very much worth your time. That's all I can say. I put that up Friday. I got a very nice missive about that movie from somebody, a very high-ranking, very successful producer who works in that genre, quite enjoyed it. So, and was very impressed, especially in the time period they had to make the movie. So there's people, I want to get more industry eyeballs on the festival. We want it to grow. So I apologize to all the filmmakers that were waiting to hear an announcement on Christmas Day. I'm going to push it back, but that is only in consideration of all the movies. I want to do everything I can for the next 3 weeks to get as many eyeballs on the films as I can. And what I want to do also is when I do the long show, I want to do like a long show. I want to be able to interview, whether it's on Skype, whether it's on Zoom, or whether I can just have you come in and I can record you on Wirecast. I would like to have interviews with all of the filmmakers to precede a showing of the finalists and make it one long show. So that's what I'm trying to do now. And it's been tough to coordinate interviews with people. So, and I haven't contacted some people either. I'm still showing the films. And of course, I want the judges that have ample time. And it was probably a mistake to do it around Christmas because people are tough. Captain Opinion is here. Now, this is a really interesting letter. I keep meaning to read this letter. Captain Opinion wrote this letter. This is a fascinating letter. He wrote this back in November of 2012, he says. So Captain Opinion says, "Hello again, Rob. Historical or period? I already had a new topic that was already bursting out of me like the eponymous alien when you mentioned the exact same topic on your show. Random chance coincidence, collective consciousness, who knows? But you mentioned historical and period and contemporary dramas. And since it's your show that is literally branded as being for imagination connoisseurs, that I thought you might enjoy a dive into precision filmmaking language." Huh? What, Captain? Okay, picture the scene. You're an intern working for Stanley Kubrick. His PA walks in, click, 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 heels, but I digress. "I have an IP on offer, a story about Napoleon." Stanley says, "Huh. Is it period or historical?" The PA looks at Stanley. "I'm not a film geek. What's the difference?" Stanley looks at you. Care to explain the difference? So this is admittedly hair splitting, but those hairs are there to be split. Historical versus period is a thing. See, most people use the two terms interchangeably, but for the tiresome pedant, the film connoisseur, and the gatekeeping twat alike, that's me, gatekeeping twat. That's what somebody else called me, which I was also using at the front of my show. See? Bemusement. It's like the difference between a Chardonnay and a Riesling, a double shot and a decaf. Some agree that while the distinction is valid, they claim the two terms are transposed. But think of the nonfiction parallel. If you now write a book on the Victorian era, that is a history book. If you read a Victorian newspaper or magazine, that is a periodical. So, what is this damn distinction pertaining to? The fact that we have two factors: when a story is made and when it is set. As simply as possible, that actually gives us 4 categories. Made now, set now. Example, No Time to Die. Contemporary. Made then, set now. Blade Runner is speculative. Made now, set then. Example, 1917. That would be historical. Made then, set even further back. Lawrence of Arabia, also historical. Made then, set then. Dr. No would be a period film. I don't know if I agree with that, but let's go further. There's more. This of course only covers the past and present. It doesn't discuss something made now and set in the future. Currently speculative, future period, the old standby science fiction. Also, what if you now make a new adaptation of Sherlock Holmes? That's a period story on a historical film set. Is Blade Runner being made in 1982 and set in 2019 simply speculative, or is it future history? I don't know, nor do I claim to know. I guess my point is that one person's overzealous hair splitting is another person's jumping off point for further investigation. Maybe we need to invent a new film language as we go, which is the ongoing RMB lesson for me. No, we're not here just to dissect or question or even complain just for its own sake. No. We wish to understand, question, and push forward, not to read or even write screen history, but to sometimes make it too. That's it. Until next time, as you were, Captain Opinion. Well, this is interesting. I like this idea. This is an interesting idea. So the difference between period and historical. See, I think, okay, if you're talking about a period piece, like let's say, oh, it's a period piece, I think you're talking about a movie that is set in a certain period. But like if you're telling, say, a murder mystery, The Devil in the White City or something, you're telling a murder mystery. Now, it might be set in the past, but I don't necessarily think of that as a historical film, or even necessarily a period movie. First and foremost, to me, it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery, or you're going after a serial killer. It happens to be set in a back in time, but for me, the first genre that comes to my mind, it's a murder mystery, but it's set in a certain period. So I've always thought that a period piece is a movie that's set in a certain time. Like if you're going to set like The Age of Innocence is a period piece, but it's not historical because it's not necessarily about a historical event. I've always thought of a historical movie as being about, like Lawrence of Arabia is about a real dude, Mr. T. Lawrence, T-Law. It's T-Law. It's a historical drama is something that is a dramatization of an event in history. That's what I've always thought a historical, in my own mind. A period piece is a story that's set in a certain period of time. A period piece could be set during the Apollo era. It could be set anywhere. But like a James Bond movie, when Dr. No was made and it came out in 1962, it was a contemporary movie. It was a modern film. Now you cannot go back and watch Dr. No and not think of it as a period piece. So I would, made then, set then, when you say Dr. No, Dr. No it was a contemporary movie at the time. Now it becomes a period piece. So it's interesting. In terms of science fiction, I don't think you could call science fiction, I think speculative is the right word that you use. It's speculative because, look, you can make a period science fiction movie. You could make, again, depending on how you want to, it is hair splitting. I think it really depends on how you think about it. But I do like the fact that suddenly now you've got me contemplating what this all means, and that's a great letter. And that is for the chat to mull over and chime in and opine on. I'm sure other people will write in, and they will have things to say, which I love. AJ Kelley, or a king of the Wicker people as we know them. This one is, hello, Rob, and all of the Post-Geek singularity at large. I hope everyone is quite alive and well. This little thought of mine is just something which has been swimming around in my brain for a little while, but it surfaced again during a little bit of spirited debate, not an argument, on Twitter a little earlier on. You may have even been tagged in the tweet. I can't remember. I am a long-time lurker, going back ages, and I just never had the time nor the wherewithal to write in on a subject. However, with today's environment being what it is, I feel like this subject is at least a bit apropos. While there always existed fandoms, Trek versus Star Wars, DC versus Marvel, and at one time I even accidentally wandered into I read this letter before. You know what? I'll read it again since I'm going. I even wandered into a Mr. Brooks versus Dexter message board war on the IMDb. I enlisted squarely into the Mr. Brooks camp on that fateful day. However, these days, more and more people seem to be joining forces in online campaigns in support of, I remember this letter, but you know what? It's a good letter, so I'll read it again. In support of Warner Brothers, Disney, and the like. While I do get a little bit of a kick out of watching the discourse unfold, as an active musician and punk rocker, I really find myself hard-pressed to lend support to any giant, opaque corporation in general. I'm just some dude who enjoys the MCU for its connective tissue. I got a big kick out of Zack Snyder's insane and kind of metal take on the DC characters. I mean, even James Wan's Aquaman, for his over-the-top, this amazing, fantastical phantasmagoria, there is something metal, or at least very prog rock, about James Wan's Aquaman. I love the idea. Zack Snyder's take on the DC universe is metal, is exactly right. It is so metal. I mean, it's no lie that the metal series on the about across the Batman books. I mean, is Zack Snyder, if they ever did that as a film, Zack Snyder is probably the best director for it, because yes, his take is metal. I dig The Mandalorian, and The Next Generation is probably one of my favorite non-music things ever. However, many of my favorite films have been quirky and strange pseudo-indie films, which brings me to Fox. Out of all the studio fighting that occurs, one thing that bums me out by its very absence is the lack of focus on one of the major transgressions of the last several decades, that being the U.S. Department of Justice allowance of Disney to absorb and subsequently dismantle 20th Century Fox. This, in my view, is more damaging to creative outlets than Warner's pulling shenanigans with HBO Max, Disney pulling a questionable audible with Disney Plus, as well as Peacock stashing everything of value behind their goddamn ridiculous paywall. In a favorite of mine 1999 interview linked below, Michael Crichton, wearing a rad turtleneck and channeling his inner Nostradamus, prophetically called each and everything that we are currently living, God love him, including YouTube, TikTok, 2 or 3 companies running everything, as well as the onslaught of a global pandemic. Goddamn, do I miss that dude. The fact that 20th Century Fox no longer exists is an example of a corporate anarchy run amok and gone woefully awry. In my wildest dreams, I could not imagine a parent company like Disney greenlighting anything of the likes of Deadpool, X-Men 2000, Logan, Alien, as well as the myriad of standalone insane movies they made over the years. I remember saying this last time, Fight Club. Also, let me mention that 20th Century Fox probably had the coolest fanfare ever, and I'll die on that hill. I agree with you. We park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. Even though one of my band's YouTube videos of a song that I wrote was a copyright stricken because we put a flippantly funny version of 20th's fanfare before one of our uploads. When Disney consumed Fox and subsequently shat its soul out of its corporate tailpipe, I couldn't help but feel that something had been lost. I can hardly see Disney making a crazy movie about Freddie Mercury or putting one of my band's insane songs on a soundtrack, and Fox did both in the post-2020 climate. At the end of the day, I just enjoy a good output. I do not care what corporate entity creates it. However, I feel like it's better if more people are creating content rather than fewer, but that's just me. Cheers all, and then here is the video which I will put in the live chat. Michael Crichton predicts the future. Here you go. Let me put that in there. See what people are saying. You know, it's very interesting to me because when it comes to entertainment, the things that break through, Hollywood never became hugely successful following trends. And I think the diminishing returns of the Star Wars sequel movies are going to be looked at. I mean, look, whatever you want to say, I believe Force Awakens was a fluke because there hadn't been new Star Wars for a long time. The fact that we're going to get our characters, our beloved characters from the original trilogy back, there was a lot of reasons why Force Awakens was a huge success. I don't think it was an entirely very successful movie as far as a film, but it was a huge box office success. $2 billion wildly exceeded everyone's expectations. And so I don't look at The Force Awakens as a bellwether or a litmus test, or we should not look at it as a good example. A good example would have been Last Jedi, where things calmed down a bit. And Last Jedi did what 1.3 billion? Still a huge, I'm not going to debate the merits of Last Jedi. But the fact that Rise of Skywalker wound up making less money than Last Jedi is very telling. And I think that the story of the Disney sequel trilogy is one of, look, I'm a huge fan of Kathleen Kennedy, but I don't blame Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy busted her ass and tried to make these things work. She made really interesting directorial hires, and yet what Kathleen Kennedy was used to was people knowing exactly what to do to make these films, and going out and getting people that aren't exactly as seasoned as the people she was used to working with might have been a mistake. But I don't begrudge her anything. They still made a shit ton of money, but it was unfortunate. The problem is Disney, as a corporation, they're not interested in putting out things like Fight Club that are edgy because Disney is a family company. The Disney brand has value, and their value is in the fact that parents the world over are supposed to be able to go to see or experience a Disney product and know that it's family friendly or family safe. That's not to mean that they haven't made edgy movies. I mean, even Soul, their upcoming Soul, touches on some religious topics, the idea of the afterlife. There's people that might be initially offended. I mean, it's not supposed to be, I'm sure it's not saying one way or another what religion it's supposed to be in favor of, if any, probably none. They'd rather not bring that up. But by definition, Disney's corporate mandate has to, and Disney, unlike, say, 20th Century Fox, is family friendly. Now, that's why you keep 20th Century Fox as a brand, but everybody knows Disney owns it. And then you can make things like Fight Club, but they're never going to do that. Disney is not going to allow 20th Century Studios now to ever make something like Fight Club. They're not going to allow that to happen. And their Alien movies are, I think, going to be toned down. So I agree with you. But I think that great storytelling, making the kinds of movies, I mean, when we had movie studios that were not owned by larger corporate overlords and they were owned, well, they were entities unto themselves, then they could make movies because they were the purveyors of art. You know, when the Hays Code came in, movie studios had to make much tamer movies. It all became innuendo. But you're right. The problem with our corporate overlords, and the more that our civilization gets corporatized, is that by definition, corporations want to sell their products to the most amount of people. And when you're making things that are edgy or don't appeal to everyone, punk rock, if you will, what is the incentive for a corporation to do that? Because their movie then is not going to reach the widest possible audience. So I think the real danger of our corporatized culture is that we're getting the most vanilla stuff possible, I guess, call it that. And who wants that? And I think that's definitely a problem. And now, you know, with our that's why we get less foreign films. That's why we have less edgy independent fare. I think that's the one thing that the streaming services are they want that stuff. They want to have diversity of content. But you're right. I think that's a horrible byproduct of our corporate world. And we're going to all have to deal with it. But again, it's an evolutionary process. But I want to thank you for writing in. I know people are like, oh my God, you haven't read my letter, but you read his letter twice. I didn't mean to read his letter twice, but I apologize for doing so. I thought it was a good letter, though. Kyle Arking writes in and says, Rob, have you seen Tenant yet? No, I haven't. If you were not watching Let's Get Physical Media, here it is. Here is the 4K Steelbook, and I'm going to watch it, and we will do a whining about movies about Tenant. I can't wait. Can you please make a show about it? Because I would love to hear your astute thoughts on the film. I've currently seen it 3 times, once on 4K, and I read the screenplay. It's not my favorite Nolan film by any means, but I think it's really good and filled with some very intense action sequences I never have seen before in film. I love the James Bond spy caper aspect of the films too. Thanks, and have a great day, Kyle A. Well, Kyle, I will be talking about it on this show. I want to thank you for writing in. I'm really excited. So yes, this one comes from Mark Largent. You know what? Before I read Mark Largent's letter, I'm going to see what you guys are saying over here in this, your tips and everything. There's, you know what? I've got somebody wrote in a while ago that was yesterday, and I haven't read it. I haven't read their tip, and let me see if I can find where it is. No, it's like that. We talked about that. Hang on, you got to just bear with me. It was a good letter. Anthony Gonzalez wrote in. I didn't read this. This is something I remember. Mon frère, how the hell are you? I recall you said at one point you got to see the visitors attack and transport shuttles from V, the final battle. Tell that story again. They're one of my all-time favorite shows. Also, these shows stomp all over Picard. Okay, Anthony Gonzalez, a longtime imagination connoisseur, asks me about the fact that I mentioned, okay, for those of you who don't remember, back in the early 80s, 1983, the V miniseries, the 2-night miniseries about aliens coming to Earth, and then the follow-up V, The Final Battle, which came out, I think, a year later. Cool show. I just ordered a V t-shirt. I found a really great artist on TeePublic, and I forget his name, but I saw on Facebook, again, he made a great logo of the Speed Racer racing team. It's awesome. And I admit, it's not a Last Exit to Nowhere shirt, but this artist clearly is taking cues from Last Exit to Nowhere. So I bought like 10 of his shirts because he did these great logos. But one of them was the V, the V insignia. It's on the breast here. Had to get that. So the visitors have a very swastika-esque logo. So I worked at Warner Brothers. And when I worked at Warner Brothers, it's different there now. But the back lot, there was a Western set there, a standing Western set. There was a scene dock where they put all the flats. It was a building that was exposed, but they would slide all the flats in, so just for storage. And then a big part of the back lot, there was it was full of detritus. I mean, it was full of all kinds of stuff from different movies, set design things, set pieces. But they had 2 full-size V shuttles that you could get in, walk around in, and they had been sitting outside. I worked there. I started work at Warner Brothers in 1989. I was there until 1991, and I've talked to everybody. I worked for Bill Young, who was the senior vice president of feature production, and then I worked over at Silver Pictures as a story analyst for a while. But when I worked there, in my lunch hour, I just wandered around. For me, it would be difficult for me to convey to you all what it was like to be 22, 23 years old and to be working for the senior vice president of physical production. We oversaw the production of all the movies Warner Brothers made. So and I was on call, I was basically a glorified PA, and my job, I had to take production reports and I had to take call sheets around because we got them every day to all the executives that needed them on the various movies they oversaw. But there was a lot of time where I was walking around the whole studio, and I went everywhere. I went into everything. I left no stone unturned. If there was an unlocked door at Warner Brothers, I would go in it. And I stayed there till all hours of the night. I was reading scripts. I was their worst nightmare. If I was there today, but here's the thing. Back then, nobody cared. You know, I think everybody was talking about being bemused. My boss, Bill Young, I think, was bemused how much I loved being on that Warner Brothers lot. It was a dream come true. I could walk over to the post-production department. I remember finding Phil DeGuerre, the producer of the Twilight Zone revival in the 85 Twilight Zone revival. One day I walked by his office, and there was it's a plaque, Phil DeGuerre's office. I just went in his office like it was at 7 o'clock at night. His door was kind of open. He was in there. His assistant was gone. I'm like, hey, man, I work in feature production. You're Phil DeGuerre. You produced the Twilight Zone, the revival. I love the Twilight Zone revival. And he's like, well, take a seat. And I would just shoot the shit with him. I cannot tell you what it was like for me to work there. And then not only that, I had access to all the executive offices. The only offices I didn't go into was I couldn't go into Bob Daly or Terry Semmel's office because there was a receptionist there, and there was no reason for me to go beyond. They were running the studio, so I never actually went into their offices. But everybody else's office, Bruce Berman, Mark Canton, Lorenzo de Bonaventura, Tom LaSalle, Alan Stewart, Lisa Henson. It was Lucy Fisher. I mean, I was in everyone's offices, and the great thing is, and I was supposed to be there every day. I had to go in and drop stuff off, and you learned how to read upside down very quickly. Whatever scripts were there, I'm like, I got to get that script. I mean, it was the best. It was the best. So finding my way around the Warner Brothers lot, I find everything. I found the time machine from Time After Time. I wanted to figure out a way. It was in the mill, the construction mill, and it was up on the wall. They had it mounted up on the wall, and I loved showing people that. And then one day some fuckers took it down and repainted it all gold for some goddamn music video, man. I was pissed. I'm like, what? It looked exactly like it looked like in Time After Time, Nicholas Meyer's Time After Time, which is a movie I love. And it had been sitting there for 12 years. No one had touched it. And then one day, because anything on a movie, what people don't understand is that Time Machine was so beautiful, but it was done. The movie, it was built for a movie, and they needed somewhere to put it, and it wound up at Warner Brothers, and somehow it was in the mill where they build everything, up on the wall. And then one day someone came in and said, "Hey, can we use that and put it in a music video?" Sure. Can we repaint it? No one cared. No one cared, and they did. But that's why when I would give people, they used to have me give celebrities kids or celebrities themselves, I would take them on my tour of the Warner backlot because I knew where all kinds of things were, and I'd go talk to everybody. I could go places where nobody else could go. It was the best. I miss those days. Here's the one I wanted to read. Glenn Taylor. Glenn Taylor sends in a super chat and says, "Rob, thanks for the kind wishes on my 24th anniversary. As we know, Glenn Taylor and his wife were celebrating their 24th anniversary, and I had posited the question. I said, Glenn, you and your lovely bride, after 24 years of marriage, do you remember I always ask people this when they're married. Do you remember the first, or even if they're just boyfriend and girlfriend, what was the first movie you went to see?" And Glenn says, to answer your question, the first movie we saw together in theaters was the 1986 film Short Circuit. Johnny Five is alive. And I didn't care for Bye Bye Birdie. They were going to watch Bye Bye Birdie for their anniversary. Well, win some, lose some. It sounds like, Glenn, you and your wife, you've certainly won. Almost a quarter century together. That's amazing in this day and age. Kudos to the two of you. I hope you had an amazing evening, and how fantastic. Amazing. Emil Johansson sends in a tip and says, "Is the Star Wars Holiday Special from Disney canon? It's the only continuation of Rey and the other characters that exist." I don't know. I mean, I think that the first Holiday Special's canon, Itchy and Mala and Life Day and all that. Maybe it is. I have yet to see it. I think it's a little, it's all over the place, right? A lot of sci-fi concepts. Again, is it canonical for you? Could be. Danny Boy sends in a tip and says, "Hi, Rob. I tried to access your website over the past couple of days, but it still comes up with the 'Sorry, we're doing some work on the site' message. Is it still under maintenance, or do I have to access it another way?" Danny Boy, it is indeed still under maintenance. Mike Bodden is working on it. He sounds like a kid in a candy store, that guy, doing the website. The website's his baby. He's done such a great job, and he's always renovating it, and we're getting it's a revamp. And I think everyone's going to love it. It's very exciting. I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited to see what he does with that website. So have no fear. The website is almost here. Geeking with James Hancock sends in a super chat and said, "I recently got hooked on your channel. Keep up the great work." Well, Geeking with James Hancock, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for supporting the channel. Always nice to always nice to have you come by, or anyone to come by, and I'm glad you're a recent convert. By the way, for anybody who recently has started listening or watching this show, I've been making them into podcasts, and you can get them on Apple Podcasts. You can get them on Spotify. You can even get this in India. I don't know if anyone's listening in India, but you can if you want. You can get it on podcasts there, so check it out. So thank you, Geeking with James Hancock. What's it like to geek with James Hancock? Do you have a channel? Can we all go geek with James Hancock? I like that. Sean M. sends in a super chat and says, "This show, relative to others, is the news hour of fandom." Ooh, you know what, Sean? I don't think you could give me a better compliment than that. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. Midnight Designer. That sounds like a song topic. Sent in a super chat and said, "Not to take you off topic, but I just finished watching the Star Trek video with Drinker. I was mesmerized by it. It was amazing. Thank you and Merry Christmas." I would assume you were assuming to the 4.5-hour stream I did with the Critical Drinker. Now, I make no apologies for the people that I have a wide variety of YouTubers that I watch and enjoy. And one of my favorite YouTubers is, of course, the Critical Drinker. Now, whether you do, I don't agree with him 100% of the time, but I really do think the Critical Drinker, he is a storyteller himself, and I think that he does give things a pretty fair shake. So I was both honored and privileged to be invited to go on his channel, and we talked we talked on the 41st anniversary about Star Trek the Motion Picture. Now, normally, when I am waxing rhapsodic about my love of Star Trek the Motion Picture, and I'll give a shameless plug for a great book that is right there, Star Trek, and it's all about the design and visual effects. What's the official title? Hang on. Yes, it is. It's Star Trek Inside the Art and Visual Effects. It's by a guy named Gene Kazicki, who I knew growing up in Seattle, and my other friend, Jeff Bond. They co-wrote it together. It's a fantastic book. If you like Star Trek, you like Star Trek design and visual effects, I highly recommend it. And because I thought it was lost, I have something I'm going to tell you. I'm doing a great unboxing probably tomorrow. It's the great COVID unboxing. It's everything everybody's sent to me since lockdown, since about March. It's a big box of stuff people have sent me. I'm going to unbox it. But Emma Bannon, our own Emma Bannon from the UK, she sent me that same book, and I thought it disappeared. I didn't realize. I thought I'd given her my personal address or whatever, but no, she sent it. Now, we have an extra copy. So I'm going to give away the copy, and I'm going to have Gene and Jeff Bond sign it for the winner. And Emma has come up with some trivia questions, and I don't know which ones I'm going to use, but she came up with some actually really good trivia questions. And so when I do the unboxing tomorrow of all this stuff, I'm going to give away one of those books. So I'm going to give away the one she got and get it, but I'll get it signed for you. So yeah, there you go. So Midnight Designer, thanks for writing in, and I'm glad you found our talk mesmerizing. You know, what I thought was great about that stream, that session, whatever you want to call it, was that Critical Drinker does not have this nostalgic, fervent love for the motion picture. He was watching it as a movie, and he brought extremely. I mean, I'm used to talking about Star Trek the Motion Picture to my like-minded friends like Darren Doctorman, who participated in the director's edition of the film, and of course Mark Altman, who I made Star Trek, the Star Trek Love Fest film Free Enterprise with. And again, Mark Altman was somebody I was a fan of before I even met him. I read all of his, I lived for his year-end wrap-ups of each season of Star Trek The Next Generation. He used to write these 100-page examinations of every season of Star Trek the Motion Picture, and I was a huge fan of his before we even worked together, so it was a great honor to meet him and become friends. And now we do the Inglorious Treksperts. We just recorded the 101 greatest episodes of science fiction television. Boy, is that going to piss a lot of people off. And I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but listen to it. We recorded it over 9 hours. But so Critical Drinker was not somebody who had this. He was analyzing Star Trek: The Motion Picture as a movie. He gave it a fair shake. He really understood what I liked about it, and I really liked listening to what he thought about it. And he was much more, I think, fair-minded about the film. But I thought we had a great conversation, and I couldn't believe we talked about it for 4.5 hours, but it was great. I love the Critical Drinker. I'm glad you enjoyed watching it. Thanks very much for that. And we'll see if we do things in the future. I would like to. Emil Johansson says, I think stories are semi-subjective because if you ask random people if something is good or bad, they give you different answers. If a majority has one answer, there are still large sub-minorities with other opinions. Okay, you know what, Emil? I've talked about this a lot. That is true. I think people's opinions about stories are wide and varied, and they're not wrong. But for them, I also think that there is an objectivity to great art and great storytelling, because there are, just like there's style. If you read Strunk and White, there's style to writing. And I think great stories are a form. Storytelling is a form, like other forms of things, maybe not quite like mathematics, but I think that there are great stories, objectively great stories. Well, because we're all different, we all bring different ideas in, and some people like some stories, some people don't. Like, I love The English Patient. A lot of people think it's boring as fuck, but I love the movie. Now, our opinions, whether the movie is good or not, I mean, if you're bored by things like that, that's not the movie's fault. That doesn't mean that the movie, if somebody doesn't like The English Patient or they're bored by it, that doesn't make The English Patient better or worse. I think there is an objectivity to things that are actually good. I think that, you might not like some kinds of paintings, but that doesn't make the painting good or bad. It just means you don't like them. I do think that there is an objectivity to all art and storytelling in some way, shape, or form. The way we feel about it is different. But I think that, there's some good art and there's bad art. But I think the idea that all art is subjective, all storytelling is subjective, I think is wrong. I think there's actually the fact that Shakespeare has endured. Look, I don't speak in iambic pentameter, I don't speak in Old English, but his stories, there's something about his stories, because not only have they been adapted themselves, but variations on his stories have been retold by other storytellers now for centuries. So there's something about his stories and the human condition that I think are objectively good. If you look at the AFI's top 100 movies, I think they're objectively good. Now we have, in the postmodern era, there's people that are going to come along and tell you, what about these movies? Like somebody wants to criticize Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien, you read about how, his work is racist or it's not good for women or all that. Well, that's your opinion, but does that make the stories any less good? He was writing what he called myths for England. And he was a product of England, a Catholic Englishman. And so he wrote what he knew through the prism of that. Now, does it make sense to pillory or criticize his work from, say, the humanities studies now? I mean, yeah, you can recognize these things, but I don't think it never works when you're trying to apply today's mores or where we've come from onto stories that were written 50 or 100 years ago or a lot longer. It's silly to me, but that doesn't mean they're either good or bad. I believe the objectivity of certain things, art, I mean. And I think that AFI top 100 best films, there's a consensus there, and there's a reason there's a consensus. So that's just me, though. Stubble McShave says, I realized that the arriving Jedi scene in the latest Mandalorian episode was almost a negative photo image of the Vader scene in Rogue One. Both were obvious fan service, but still awesome. Here's the thing. People talk about member berries, and they talk about nostalgia and fan service and all that. I'm like, what's wrong with that? Again, The Mandalorian, I think, in its conception, it is not necessarily as deep as, say, Empire Strikes Back. But it is a pulp sci-fi show. I mean, remember, George Lucas wanted to bring back Flash Gordon, and that whole idea of the Saturday morning serials that you'd see at the movie theaters. It was never supposed to be, the Left-Handed Darkness, Ursula K. Le Guin's Left-Handed Darkness. It was never supposed to be Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, or it was never supposed to be Dune, even though it took a lot from Dune. And I think The Mandalorian, what we've seen, is a lot more in the spirit, in the vein of Star Wars than a lot of the other things that we're seeing. And, it's kick-ass. It gives us all that nougaty goodness that we love. It's pulp sci-fi. It's guys with laser guns and now girls with laser guns and death troopers and Imperial officers and spaceships and a force-wielding cute baby and Luke Skywalker coming back. We'd never seen, see, what I find interesting is we'd never ever seen Luke Skywalker as a full-fledged wreck shop, in-your-face Jedi defending the galaxy from evil. We've never seen that before. So I don't think that's fan service. I think that's the logical extension of the character of Luke Skywalker that we've always wanted to see. Now, if that's fan service, that's one thing, but I think it's also kind of kick-ass. Like, didn't you want to see that? We've never seen that before. So as people say, well, it's fan service because people wanted that. Well, yeah. Once you've seen Star Wars, everything that you love Star Wars, everything that comes after is fan service to a certain extent because we loved it. We want more. And I think what we're getting in The Mandalorian is they've expanded the universe. They've taken things from now the movies and the animated shows, and they're combining them into a frothy mix that I want more of. I want to get drunk on modern Star Wars. Is it going to change my life? No, but I never expected it to. Did I want it to resonate more than it has? Well, ever since Jedi let me down, and yes, Return of the Jedi let me down, it hasn't mattered. I'm having fun with it again. I'm not walking away going, oh, it was all right. I'm just like, man, that was kick-ass, dude. I mean, think about it. think about how The Mandalorian this season, especially the last 5 episodes, have made people happy with Star Wars again. So that's pretty good. Ethan Holgate says, "Hi, Rob. I'm just wondering if there are any Irish movies that you love that either take place in Ireland or not. I recommend The Guard if you haven't seen it, such as a hilarious Irish dark comedy starring Brendan Gleeson and Don Cheadle. I like The Guard. My Left Foot, In the Name of the Father. Yeah, there's a lot of Irish movies that I like. You know what popped into my mind? This is terrible. Far and Away. You're a corker, Shannon. A corker. I know that doesn't count, but hearing Tom Cruise, nothing makes me happier than hearing Tom Cruise try and do an Irish accent and talk about Nicole Kidman that way. You're a corker, Shannon. So yes, I mean I'm a fan. I love anything Irish. Irish redheads, Irish booze. You know what I can't get here? You know what's really hard to get here? Kilkenny. It's made by Guinness. Kilkenny, the cream of Ireland. And you got to have it right. You got to they in New Zealand I was drinking Kilkennys. And there was an Irish pub across from the Duxton, the hotel I was staying in Wellington. I was there for a long time. And I loved Kilkenny, and man, is it hard to get here. But yeah. The Guard is good. You know what? I have the Guard on Blu-ray, but I need to crack it open. Never cracked that open. Grace Randolph's hair. Grace Randolph's hair. Are you aware of the concept of the dream catcher? I am. And a Native American ritualistic object fashioned in the matter of a spider web to catch dreams. Superstitious nonsense, of course. Is it? Or is it? Something like that does indeed exist in reality. It's not some kind of object crafted by First Nation tribes, but in fact grown from the scalp of a person. One unique individual. That's right, Grace Randolph's hair. But it doesn't catch dreams, but nightmares. Specifically rambling nonsense. Misheard and half absorbed from the faintest whispers of the most remote film sets, then twisted, warped, inverted, before finally drifting in the world to spread chaos and strife. How do I know this? Well, I am a clump of Grace Randolph's hair. One of many that has fallen out and managed to escape. Saturated with nonsense, grease, and hairspray, this hellish mix has managed to produce the most unexpected thing. Life. Bereft of purpose initially, I endeavor to become a herald to warn whoever I come across about the horrors that lay behind me. Beware, beware, my friends. Do not trust the words that come before. For if you were to swallow them, you'll become one of them. You too will betray Pedro Pascal's privacy. Beware, beware, beware. Grace Randolph's hair. Okay. Now, I want to thank you for sending that tip in for me to read that. But I have to say, look, I've watched Grace Randolph over the years. She's out there like any other YouTube personality. You know, she's putting on a show every day. She works hard. My girlfriend is not a big fan of hers, but I've watched some of what she's done. I don't really understand. I don't watch enough of her to know she's very divisive in this community for people, but I give it up to her. I mean, again, she started her own channel. She's built up her subscribers. She has Zack Snyder on that she's interviewing. I mean, clearly she's become somebody that within the industry has some kind of cachet, and she's allowed, I don't know anything about violating Pedro Pascal's privacy, but yeah, she's like the modern day Hedda Hopper. I don't know. But I do think you gave me a good chuckle, Grace Randolph's hair. I mean, look, I do think Grace Randolph would be somebody fun to go out and get rip-roaring drunk with. But I'm probably too old to say that. But I appreciate what she's done. And, again, working in the same space, I do watch her, and I did watch what when she had Zack Snyder. I think didn't she have him on recently again? I don't know, but I mean that's worthy of celebration, isn't it? And certainly, you've made me. If nothing else, you've made me now. I will never stop thinking, beware, beware, Graves Randolph's hair. But yeah, I mean, look. She's out there. She's out there busting her ass, trying to do a YouTube show, and yeah. Danny Boy comes back and says, I watched Charlie Jade when it was originally released on what was called FX, now called Fox, a Fox Networks group channel here in the UK. Well, we have Fox too. It was a good show. It certainly deserved a couple more seasons and a more complex closure for the lead character. Well, that's good to hear. I'm excited. I'm finding out things I don't know, and I got to watch this. Stubble McShave says, in my mind, the difference between period and historical movies is this. A historical movie is about a significant event or person from history. A period movie is about non-significant events or persons from history that are doing fascinating things. I like that. I'll agree with that. I think that's true. I agree. Emil Johansson is back and says, Disney is for kids, but I remember kids walking out of Lilo and Stitch because it was traumatizingly sad. Bruh. Disney. Old Yeller. Bambi. They can induce cry time in kids like no one can. You got to watch out. They'll come get you. 200 Watt Studio sends in a super chat and says, I have to disagree with you, Rob. What? Kathleen Kennedy made terrible decisions with Star Wars. She was not a good steward of the IP. She was either indifferent or negligent to let what transpired in The Last Jedi. Okay. Here's the thing. I feel like sometimes I'm a Kathleen Kennedy apologist. But you know what? Kathleen Kennedy was fielding also, remember, what Disney expected and wanted of the franchise. I am sure Kathleen Kennedy would have liked to have done a movie with all of the original characters first, but Disney probably said no. They had their own things. They needed new characters to merchandise and put in theme parks. And all of this you know, the funny thing about Last Jedi is my problem with Last Jedi, I think of the 3 sequel trilogy movies, I liked The Last Jedi the best. And a lot of people were like, and I'll tell you why. Because it showed us things we hadn't seen before. And I was curious. I mean, what I thought was what was a real bummer was in the rise of the First Order. If I was in charge of the sequel trilogy and you wanted to have the First Order come back, which is, I mean, going from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens is horrible because you never get to see the galaxy put back together again. And if anything, I would love to have seen a film where we saw the New Republic as it was built. People were complacent. They defeated the Empire. They were complacent, and as we saw Luke trying to train new Jedi, the First Order gained a foothold, and the rise of the First Order coincided with Luke's failure with Kylo Ren. And that could have been really interesting to see. I mean, that was something I would like to have seen. Instead, we just saw Luke as this hermit on an island. Nobody wanted to see that. But if we'd seen what had transpired, if that was, I always thought it was a huge mistake to not make The Force Awakens the first about all the old characters, Luke, Han, Leia, R2-3PO, Chewbacca, Han, Leia, did I say Han, Leia? All of our characters at the height of the Republic, managing what they thought was everything was hunky-dory. But because of whatever reason, the First Order, they weren't expecting it, and they counterpointed that with Luke's failure with Ben Solo, and they could have gone from there, and it would have been really compelling. I just felt like Force Awakens felt like it was the Cliff Notes of a story. They just moved from place to place, and okay, Rey can fly the Millennium Falcon as good as anybody in the galaxy can, which didn't make sense to me. She was already a badass, living alone as a hermit, as a kick-ass hermit in the wastes of Jakku. I thought it was a big mistake. But yeah, But I don't blame Kathleen Kennedy because she tried. Lord and Miller directing Solo was not a bad idea. She hired these people, and I think that was actually pretty audacious for her, trying to make a fun movie. The problem was Lord and Miller are Lord and Miller because they like to improvise and do things and change things around, and they got deep, deep, deep into that movie, and people talk about, it's not, it was a good hire. Remember, Lord and Miller brought us the Academy Award winning Into the Spider-Verse. So they were tapped to do Solo. That was a good choice. That it didn't work out and that they got so far into it, it was actually a testament to what Kathleen Kennedy was trying to do. And I think people forget that. The Last Jedi, was it the movie that we all would have made? No. It was Rian Johnson was trying to deconstruct. I don't think Star Wars is the franchise where we want to deconstruct our characters. That makes some good movie making, but it doesn't make for satisfying Star Wars. I also thought that lighting off to Canto Bight in the middle of a chase sequence was kind of dumb. I from a structural standpoint, yeah, there's a lot of other things people can object to, the Mary Poppins Leia, all that stuff. I don't think you're wrong. I would have removed a lot of that goofy stuff. I would have removed the contemporary humor and the battle in the beginning and made it a lot more dire than it was. I thought that humor undercut the whole thing. And there is a lot of goofiness, but the overall, there's a lot to like from a cinematographical from the cinematography. There's a lot to like about the movie, but structurally, I'm not a big fan of it. But what they did with Luke could have been done better and more interestingly, to the point where we would have accepted it. But going from the end of Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens and seeing Luke as a monk living on an island, no, who wants that? You don't want to deal with that's not what you want from your character. And Star Wars, it's not fan service to give fans to give them something that they expected. It wasn't that we wanted to be reminded of 1983. It was that we love the character of Luke Skywalker and we want to see him in a place where we can love him even more. And they gave us this, we haven't seen him for so long, and they gave us that? Like this morose guy who's being a hermit shirked his responsibilities. The Luke that we know wouldn't have done that. And if he did do that, you got to explain to us why. And I understand, but I don't blame Kathleen Kennedy for all that. I think that she made a lot of really interesting decisions that just didn't pan out. And a lot of it was due to the external pressure she was feeling. And look, she's also responsible for The Mandalorian and all the shows that we're going to get. So, yeah. Willow says, how accurate does a movie need to be considered historical? Well, another good question. I think most people will consider Braveheart to be a historical film, but not Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Does the movie need to appear realistic but not accurate to be historical? Well, Willow, that's a really good question. I mean, look, when you're dealing with someone like Stanley Kubrick, his Napoleon movie would have been incredibly historically accurate. And if, Barry Lyndon, in terms of evocation of the period, it really depends on it depends on your filmmaker. I mean, sometimes you use historical events. Braveheart is not exactly the most historical rendition of those events. And but yet, should it have been? Maybe not. I mean, it's hard to say. I think when we have a historical epic that's based on a true story, I think it's always best to go as close to that material as possible, but you're also telling a story. So characters can be combined, situations are compressed, and so it really depends. But yes, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter would be a horror film that was also a period piece. That's what I would call it, not historical. But first and foremost, it's a horror movie or an action horror movie. I think that's what I would say. Johnny Long sends in a super chat and says, "Hey Rob, this is probably going to be a multiple part question explaining something that I just realized. John and Dave's 2 chapters." Let's see, Johnny Long, did you? Oh, their 2 chapters of The Mandalorian are a direct sequel to the 16-part series that makes up the storyline in Clone Wars and Rebels. The Mandalorian is 16 episodes long. That's interesting. I think there's definitely something to that, absolutely. And that just shows how much thinking is being put into that series. And the fact that they're wrapping all these things up together is pretty neat. And in terms of creating value, you're going to have people that love The Mandalorian that are going to go back and jump into the Clone Wars and watch Rebels that haven't yet, and probably have a pretty satisfying experience, especially when they get past the goofy early episodes of the Clone Wars. So that's pretty neat. Yeah. Kaz Graphics, our man Kaz Graphics, is here. The cheesemonger, the official cheesemonger of the Burnettwork. Kaz Graphics says, by the way, Kaz Graphics, I don't know if you noticed, but Kaz Graphics sent me a VN Graphics glass. I love this glass. It's shaped like a aluminum can, like a beer can. So if I can't have beer, I've got a can. I've got a can-shaped glass. And I really like the fact that I love feeling cold water in my hands and on my upper lip. And I love this glass. So thank you, Kaz Graphics. And Sophie certainly liked the graphics. One of the shirts you sent was dope. And Sophie loves the hat, the baseball hat. So thank you for that. Kaz Graphics says, hello, Rob. I don't have any hot toys. But after this season of The Mandalorian, I want them all. I'm saving my money. The power of great characters and storytelling. Happy holidays. I have to tell you, I have a Hot Toys scale that comes in, a Hot Toys scale. When I watch The Mandalorian, I think to myself, okay, there's 4 characters that I want to buy, and each character is $250 each. So that's on the Hot Toys scale, this Mandalorian is a $1,000 episode. Because, my God, on the Hot Toys, every episode of that show, man, it's like, oh, I want this. I mean, Moff Gideon went up for a pre-order. He's not coming out till 2022. Hot Toys, you got to wait. You got to wait. I mean, you got to wait. I haven't even opened up my, how long did it take me to pay this sucker off? This is my Age of Ultron Hulkbuster, the deluxe. I haven't even opened it. I have not opened it. I don't know where I'm going to put it yet. I've had it now for a while. But all those Mandalorian Hot Toys, man, I am with you. So they've got the quarter scale Mandalorian with Grogu in his little floating crib. I don't normally go for the quarter scale Hot Toys figures. I've got a few quarter scale figures, which I love, but I have a quarter scale Vader I love. But that quarter scale figure is great. But if you get a quarter scale figure, you can't set them all up. You know they're going to make a Bo-Katan. You know they're going to make Dark Trooper. You know they're going to re-release Jedi Luke. They're going to all this stuff. You'll be able to get the entire line of Mandalorian figures. You'll probably be able to get Carl. I want a Carl Weathers Hot Toy figure. You'll get a Cara Dune figure. Those Hot Toys, you'll be able to get them all. I just wish they were out now. By the way, happy holidays to you. Thanks for all your support for the film festival and of us personally. Cheers to you. I love these glasses. They're fantastic. Orange Hand sends in a tip and says, movie concept. A film pundit reveals he has an old breakdancing tape hidden at his ranch in Canada. His friends assemble a team to steal it, but come up against numerous obstacles. Ocean's 11 meets Home Alone. Call your producer friends. Make it happen. Orange Hand, for those of you who don't know, John Campia, who I do a show with during the week, John Campia used to be part of a breakdancing crew. I know. He was in a YouTube cover band, and he was part of a breakdancing crew. If that isn't the coolest thing ever. Now, of course, what we would give to see clips of his breakdancing crew, I can't tell you. And if there's any way, I kind of feel like calling John Campia's mom up or his dad, who I don't know, and explain to them who I am, that maybe, or maybe his sister, you know what you got to call up? I don't know. I think he has at least one sister. He might have 2. They have to have been mischievous. Maybe they know where those tapes are. Maybe that should be a goal of 2021, is to get that John Campia breakdancing footage and put it on the web. And you know what? I bet he wouldn't be able to give a copyright strike against it either. I think that's a good idea, Orange Hand. I think it's one we need to do, because it's a recurring, I want to see that footage. Come on. By the way, this is a good time to plug. I help John in a small way with Movie Trailers, A Love Story, that is available now on Vimeo around the world. If you're interested, I was associate producer of that movie, and I'm also in it. But Movie Trailers, A Love Story, it's a delightful film, and I think it's a documentary about movie trailers. It's a brisk 80 minutes. It's so much fun to watch. There's movie pundits you might recognize, such as Scott Mance and others. Christian Harloff is in it. Also, you have the director of Shoot 'Em Up, Michael Davis, another friend of mine, and Ashley Miller, who wrote Thor and X-Men First Class, who I'm currently working on a Netflix series with that hopefully someday they'll announce it's coming out. It's coming out in when is it coming out? It's coming out March. And it is so far it's 3 seasons long, and I've been working on it as an editor, and it's been a lot of fun. Can't wait for you all to see it. It's a very cool R-rated animated series based on I Can't Say. Stubble McShave says, I'm halfway through the 17th book in the Dresden Files series called Battlegrounds, and holy shit, he and his allies are up against more or less every creature or monster from all myths and legends. Titans, undead, necromancers, and much more. Well, that sounds right up my alley. That series, I wanted it to do better than it did. Alexander Wilson is here. Hello, sir. Alexander Wilson is here. I just watched the Elton John biopic Rocket Man, and I enjoyed it. It was good, but not a great movie. I felt that way. I felt it was good, but not great. The third act was just abruptly ended. Bryce Dallas Howard's makeover was terrible, my girlfriend pointed it out. If you've seen it, what are your thoughts? I liked Rocket Man, but like you, I didn't love it. To me, the gold standard of those movies, there are two. There is, of course, Ken Russell's Tommy, and there is, of course, Pink Floyd's The Wall. Now, I know they're not necessarily biopics per se, and I just thought it was good because I love the Elton John music, but I don't think it reached the kinds of highs and lows that I wanted it to reach. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I didn't love it. Look, I understand Pink Floyd The Wall. A lot of people think it's pretentious tripe. I love Pink Floyd. I love the movie. I did find somebody on the web, a guy on the web, and I'm going to talk about him on Let's Get Physical Media and see I've got to see his wares first. I ordered some stuff from him. He has a Pink Floyd The Wall Blu-ray, and I want to see what it looks like. And I'm curious to get it, and if I'm going to ask him to come on the show, if it's great. So, yeah, I like Rocket Man. I didn't love it. I didn't buy Rocket Man on Blu-ray. So that to me is, or 4K. That to me is telling. So 200 Watt Studio says, Rob, have you watched Tenant yet? Nope. But there it is. I can't believe it's here and I haven't watched it. I've been so busy. There's so much work I have to get done, other work, that I before Christmas. Johnny Long goes on to say about the point he was making about The Mandalorian being 16 chapters long. This is not a coincidence. All the episodes of the animated series foreshadow the episodes of The Mandalorian. This is something the creators never told us. The point of it all is that now I'm explaining to my dad that The Mandalorian is a sequel, and I'm having the privilege of explaining it to him. Well, how awesome is that? That's the best part, when you get to bring people into the fold. I think you're right about that. That's why I think a lot of people are going to dip back into the Clone Wars and watch Rebels, because it's all part of the same continuum. I think that's great, and I think you're absolutely correct. It was by design. And you know what? You're the first person that I've heard make that comparison, at least that I've come across. I'm sure other people have too, but maybe not. You're the first person that's brought that to my attention, and I think you're probably right. Alexander Wilson goes on to say, after the last episode of The Mandalorian, I've never been more excited for Star Wars. I know, right? Well, I was after Empire Strikes Back. My mom read the spoilers instead of watching it, and this is coming from somebody who watched A New Hope on opening day. You're killing me, Smalls. I agree with you. Alexander, the one thing about, even as a middle-aged man with one foot in his grave who still likes to play with his Star Wars toys, I thought was kick-ass. Wow, what's not to love? So it's not War and Peace. I loved it. Sean M. sends in a super chat and says, I love The English Patient too. God damn it, man. Join our club. How can you not love The English Patient? I love The English Patient. I love it. And I want to be Ralph Fiennes in that movie. And everyone's like, but he's such an asshole. I know, but at least I want to be the Ralph Fiennes before he becomes a traitor and sells out. I want to look like he did back then and travel around the desert and find Kristen Scott Thomas and hook up and fall in love and have an affair and fly around in a plane and make maps. I don't want to collaborate with the Nazis, though. And I wouldn't want to watch Kristen Scott Thomas die. But for a moment, flying planes in the desert, having your own plane, man, that would have been what the life. But ultimately, he is a complete dick, and he does get burned up because he had it coming, man. Johnny Long sends in a super chat and says, the point is this. Oh, wait, I already read that. Oh, no. The point is this, that this is the gift that Star Wars gives us. The Christmas gift of passing down the Star Wars legacy to our loved ones. You know what? That is great. The prequel of the show, like he explained the significance. Wait, let me go back and read all of Johnny Long's posts here. So I am on Johnny on the spot. Let me do this. Okay. Since you keep sending them in, I want to read them all together so we get the gist of what you're saying. So let me start again. Johnny Long says, hey, Rob, this is probably going to be a multiple-part message explaining something that I just realized. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's 2 chapters of The Mandalorian are a direct sequel to the 16-part series that makes up the storyline in Clone Wars and Rebels. The Mandalorian is 16 episodes long. It is so far. This is not a coincidence. All of the episodes of the animated series foreshadow the episodes of The Mandalorian. This is something the creators never told us. The point of it all is that I'm now explaining to my dad that The Mando is a sequel, and I'm having the privilege of explaining it to him. The prequel to the show, like he explained the significance of the prequel trilogy and what it means to the main story, like he did to me when I was a kid. The point of this is that this is the gift that Star Wars gives us, the Christmas gift of passing down the Star Wars legacy to our loved ones. Man, what a great sentiment. And all that, I didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. And I love that idea. And Star Wars has become a generational thing. It has become, unfortunately, I've never had kids myself. That'll wind up being probably the great regret of my life. Not yet, but maybe one day it will be. And I think that not having kids to share these things with is a bummer, because obviously there's a lot here to share. But anyway, I think you're right. It's having that to do with your kids to pass it all down. That's fantastic. Alexander Wilson says, with the ending of the last episode of The Mandalorian, well, now you're a kid with your dad. It all works. It's circular. I get it. It's awesome. And I want to thank you for supporting the channel in that way. And also, I think that's a very important point that you've made. Alexander Wilson says, with the ending of the last episode of The Mandalorian, it makes the JJ trilogy look even worse. I know. I had more emotional reactions to Mando than any character in the JJ trilogy. What was Kathleen Kennedy thinking about not having a plan for the trilogy? Well, I'll tell you something. They did have a plan. And as you know, one of the things that I did this year was report on the Duel of the Fates script that Colin Trevorrow wrote. And to me, the Duel of the Fates script was the perfect capper to Force Awakens. And I mean, it wasn't perfect, but they had much more of a script. They had much more of a plan. And I think much more of a cohesive idea of what they were going to do. That got all blown to hell for a number of different reasons. But I agree. And I think that, again, Carrie Fisher's death put a wrench in the works. I mean, I really like the Duel of the Fates script, and I can't believe it was such a much different ending to that movie. I think it would have been much better, and it's a bummer what happened. But yeah, the whole bringing Palpatine back just was ridiculous. Look, I don't like J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker. I've never met him as a person. I think, frankly, all of his movies, his science fiction films, he's made 5 now. I haven't liked any of them. I haven't liked the storytelling. I haven't liked his choices. There's nothing about those films that I particularly enjoy. His 2 Star Trek movies, his Star Wars movies, and his film Super 8, I'm just not a fan. I feel that he needs to read more science fiction novels or any of the great novels. Johnny Lang has a final message for us. Is it all these worlds are yours except Europa? Use them together, use them in peace? No? Oh. My final message is the 5th episode to the prequel of The Mando is called Revival, and the 5th episode of the Mando series is The Gunslinger. Boba Fett. Well, you are correct. They knew what they were doing. BL Alley, hello BL, says, Rob, William Shakespeare didn't write in Old English. He wrote in early modern English in the middle of the great vowel shift, actually. Well, see, I didn't know that. I was just off the top of my head. I did not know that. But Yes, I think it's good. I didn't know that. I'm glad you told me. 501 sent in a super chat and said, I am a Native American and asking, do you love Hollywood's versions of our traditions or do you desire authenticity, which we do? No, I think it's always better when you go, I think indigenous people as well are all of them around the world are fascinating, and I would much rather see them depicted the way they want to be depicted. I think that, as a matter of fact, I love also Indian lore. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and there is a lot of indigenous people's influences in the area. We had, of course, the Coast Salish tribes, and I would love to see that. I'd love to see more. There's one of a favorite movie of mine. It isn't about indigenous people here, but about the Aboriginal Dreamtime is Peter Weir's The Last Wave. And I got my classmates hated me. I took that movie to my 8th grade anthropology class and they hated it. But yeah, I think that we should. I mean, it's interesting. I'm going to use Native American because you are saying that. I mean, the thing is, American didn't Europeans hang that idea on this land? But I would much rather see the Native American traditions depicted the way they're supposed to be. We grew up, unfortunately, it was unfortunate how the 20th century depicted Native Americans on screen. And I think there's no doubt about that. And I would like to see more of that. I would love to see, I would love to see genre films like The Ultimate, rather than what we've gotten in the past. It would be nice to see. It would just be nice to see more of that. I'd be curious, though, as a Native American, what are some things, as a Native American, what stories would you tell? What are the things that we need to focus on? And I bet there's a lot of rich storytelling material that no one's really considered. But what is it like? Sherman. Sherman, who wrote Smoke Signals? Let me find out. I forget his name. Sherman Alexie. Yes, Sherman Alexie. I really liked Smoke Signals, and I thought that was a pretty legitimate look at Native American culture. I don't know. I wouldn't presume to say that you did, but I'd be curious to hear what you thought of Smoke Signals. But yeah, I mean, I think Hollywood's depiction of Native Americans has been pretty horrific over the last 100 years, to be honest. Alexander Wilson goes on and says, I was watching Dennis Hopper's Colors with Sean Penn and Don Cheadle. I love Colors. I feel it's an underrated classic that captured the SoCal gang lifestyle. What is your favorite hood classic and thoughts on Colors? I loved Colors when it came. Look, Colors came out. When did it? I don't know if I was here in LA, or not yet. Colors movie. 1988, so I don't know when it came out. It was the same year I moved to Los Angeles, and Colors was happening in LA when I moved here. And when you say hood classic, I don't know if I should say hood classic, but there are a lot of movies. One of my favorite movies about the hood here in LA was Blood In, Blood Out, which was Taylor Hackford's book that was based on a Latino poet's work. And it's not so much about the black communities as about the Latino community. I love that. I think it's great. It deals with the Mexican mafia, and it deals with all kinds of things that are I don't know how authentic it is, but Colors is pretty great. I like Menace to Society, and I have to say, even though it's about New York, I love New Jack City. I love those films. As a matter of fact, one of my good friends, Darren Scott, was a producer on Menace to Society. And I like, and of course, I don't know if it really counts, but The Last Dragon. Not exactly, I know. Set It Off is pretty good too. But those are the movies that come to mind. Danny Boy is back. Regarding Ethan Holgate's Irish movie Tip, Try a little sci-fi horror B-movie called Grabbers. Ooh, I've heard it, never heard of it, never seen it. It's a crazy little 80s horror knockoff movie where a group of Irish folk defend themselves by drinking their local pub dry. Get drunk or get eaten. That's right up my alley. I didn't even know that that's what that was about. But I am in. Jeff Yerke says, "Hi, Rob. Mrs. Y just made a fantastic breakfast for dinner. And I have just 2 words for you. Battlestar Abbey. It could work. Live long and prosper, the Yerk man." I don't think anyone loves his wife as much as Jeff Yerke, aside from our 24-year young newlyweds. I love hearing about your life with your wife, Jeff. Battlestar Abbey. Really? Yeah, we could do that. Richard says, reasons your subs aren't growing is because YouTube is likely suppressing it. Also, you missed Don Corleone's super chat between Grace Randolph. Sarah, thanks for that. Did I? I was jumping around because let me go back to that. Don Martino from Corleone said, who is coming after our community? Just send me addresses. I have plenty of horse heads to send. Just kidding. I have only a few left. Don Martino, I love it. A lot of people are coming after our community. But in terms of suppression, this channel, it was very interesting to watch because this channel, you gain subscribers. It was kind of going like this. And then over October, November, my subscribers were completely anomalous compared to almost the other 2 years. They were going down. I was in negative space for whatever reason. I don't know if they were just purging bot channels or whatever they were doing, but it was very frustrating. It was disheartening. Look, if you want to get more subscribers, you got to stick with it. What I like about this is growing the channel small, but it's getting better, doing more shows, and I love doing collaborations. I have to tell you. So again, Az and I, when we did Fully Articulated, we were on Az's channel and my channel doing Fully Articulated, talking about hot toys. One of my favorite YouTubers is Justin from Justin's Collection. I love Justin's Collection, and he exclusively does unboxing and reviews of both Hot Toys figures mostly and third-party unlicensed figures. And we talked about him on the channel, and he wrote back, and he's got 200,000 subscribers, a lot more subscribers than I do. But he said he'd like to do a collaboration, so I guess I can announce on the 30th of this month at noon. We're gonna do Az's channel this week, but on the 30th we're back on my channel. If you are interested in Justin's, I was thinking Judson Scott, Justin's channel. If you look at Justin's Collection, if you're interested in Hot Toys at all, I think he's the best YouTuber on the web covering Hot Toys and action figures. I love his stuff. It's going to be me, Az, and Justin having an epic conversation about Hot Toys. You are going to, I think you're going to love it. Johnny Long says, the prequel to the show, like he explained the significance of the, I already read that. That's your dad's thing. I already passed all this. But see, I don't know where I am now. But yeah, so join us on the 30th of December. Okay, here we are. Now I'm back where I was. So Richard, thank you for that. It might be, maybe YouTube is suppressing my channel. It's, it's also a niche channel. It's not really for everybody. But we Imagination Connoisseurs are a hearty bunch. And I like what's happening. We're doing more stuff, growing the channel, doing more things. Bob Shirley, Roberto Suarez, Fernando Barrero became members. I think those are old. But anyway. 200 Watt Studio sends in a super chat and says, I'm finally getting to reading the Thrawn books. Amazing post-Return of the Jedi, New Republic world building. I agree, man. I am a huge fan of those books. The Thrawn trilogy books came out almost concurrently with Dark Empire. And it was so much fun to get the Dark Empire series and to read the Thrawn books at the same time. It was Star Wars was back, baby. And it was waning. It had left the public consciousness after, whether it was the cartoons like Ewoks and droids. But, late aughts or late 80s and early 90s was until they showed up. Star Wars was gone. Midnight's Edge after... Oh, you guys are so sweet. The Midnight's Edge After Dark channel. I'm a huge fan of everybody over at Midnight's Edge. They have me on their shows all the time. I really like hanging out with everybody. They've been so nice to me. They're always they always, for me, they always make me, every time I go over to Midnight's Edge, I feel they've made me dinner and they've invited me over and they're like, come have a great dinner with us. I've had so much fun. I met so many good people through fellow YouTubers and through the Midnight's Edge channel. I like the conversations that we have. And it's been great. You guys are so nice. Thank you for that. And I like, you know what's great about Midnight's Edge? I like the voices over there. The actual sound of people's voices, whether it's Rob who narrates their videos or Andre. I love listening to Andre's Norwegian accent. I love listening to Tom. I just like talking to those people. I met Script Doctor through them. I love talking to Script Doctor. I've had a lot of fun. So you guys, that was very nice of you to support the channel that way. But also thank you for the last year of fun talking, whether we're talking Star Trek or James Bond or just having musing philosophically about the industry. You guys have definitely been a highlight for me in the year of 2020. So thank you for that. Alexander Wilson sends in another tip and says, what is this pressure that was on Kathleen Kennedy or that Disney had to have a return on their investment? Nobody ever said that about Pixar, which was acquired for a lot more money that from Lucasfilm, or let alone the Fox deal. Where is that coming from? All right, well, here's the thing. Star Wars was a long-time franchise. It had been around for a long time, and yet there weren't any Star Wars movies being made, and it was a lot of money. And the fact is, once you spend $4 billion on something, I mean, Pixar, they've got a great track record. There's a lot more Pixar movies than there are Star Wars movies, and they've continued to have a great track record. So look, anybody, if you're a Disney shareholder and Bob Iger's spending $4 billion to acquire Star Wars, it's a risk. It might not have worked. It might have been a bad fit. So, you know, I mean, that's all I'm saying. It was definitely a risk. And it's still a risk because at a $4 billion spend, you're going to want to see, how much more money in investment? You're going to want to see a return on your money, 200, 300, 400%. I mean, that's what they're expecting. So it was a risk, I think. Johnny Long says, but there is more to my question, Rob. Laugh out loud. Keep reading. Did I miss some? Hope I didn't miss some. The Fesman93 sends in a super chat and says, someone needs to leak that video of John. I know. I don't know why he doesn't. He should turn it into a big event because people want it. Darth Plato sends in a super chat and says, as a big Napoleon buff, I'm curious about what the Kubrick film is going to be like. There's no way you can do a singular film about his entire life. Well, you know, you can get, I have the huge Napoleon book that Toshin made, but you can read the script. It's got the script in there. You can get there's a version of, Toshin books. I love Toshin books. I'm a fiend for Toshin books. I can't wait to get their prequel archives book that's coming out. It was delayed. I think it's coming out March and April now. But Toshin, well, let me show you. Let me see if I can find. So Toshin Books published a book about Kubrick's unmade Napoleon. And the first book was this amazing, it came in a big giant book, but you opened it up and there were all these little books inside, like all the costume tests and all the notes that he had made. And it was a very, very expensive book, and ridiculously so. But they released a budget version of it. If I can find it. Apparently I can't do it. Whatever, something's happening. Anyway, look it up. Look Toshin. It's Taschen. Toshin Books. They did a book. The first version that came out was like, I don't know how many hundreds of dollars it cost, but it had all these books in it. It had all of Kubrick's notes. It had the script that he was working off of, and it had all the photographs they'd taken for location scouting. It's amazing. And I highly recommend getting it. If you're a Napoleon buff, it's essential. I don't know why I'm having such a difficulty with my internet right now. Why? Let me see if it'll give it to me. No, it's not even coming up. And I don't even know. Oh, here we go. Okay, the limited edition. All right. Oh, my God. the limited edition was $3,000, or that was in the secondary market. No, it's $3,000 now. Well, yeah, just go look at. You can look up the book on the Toshin website. It's there. Check it out. Matt Line sends in a super chat and says, "There's a positive outlook for Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I also love Star Trek, but I feel so negative towards it. How can Star Trek be fixed?" Well, I think that the real problem I see with Star Trek is that everybody who's working on Star Trek wants to change it into something else. I've said this so much on this channel that, again, Star Trek was made as an action-adventure science fiction show. Roddenberry called it a wagon train to the stars, where it dealt allegorically with problems we have today through the prism of that action-adventure science fiction fantasy context. And I think the problem now is that it's fundamentally not what it used to be. Yes, Star Trek was progressive, but it was progressive as a part of its DNA. It wasn't progressive like at the forefront of its stories. And I knew that there was a problem when they were first touting the series, saying, we have the first female black protagonist for the show. And the thing is, and she's not the captain, but the problem is they've not made her character, literally, as I like to say, is a space messiah. They're not even telling science fiction shows on the context is science fiction, but they're really not telling science fiction stories. They're telling fantasy stories. And Star Trek Discovery, make no mistake, is a fantasy show. And that's my real objection to it. It's a show about magic. It's a show about magic and feelings. And that's what it is. And it's not delving into the kind of real science fiction issues or science fiction storytelling that we used to get from classic Star Trek that deals with moral and ethical issues of today. And instead, it really is about a political agenda. When Star Trek, again, they used to say, well, Star Trek never told you what to think. It told you what you should probably think about. But nowadays, Star Trek is telling you exactly what to think. It tells you in every episode. You just have to wait. Somebody will explain how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to feel. But Star Trek never used to do that. How you felt about things were up to you. But Star Trek presented you with an ethical or a moral dilemma. A perfect example is I'll go back and I'll be like, okay, classic Star Trek episode that was a photo novel, but I always go back to A Taste of Armageddon. Or I'll give you another example. Arena from the first season. The episode with the Gorn. Everyone remembers the Gorn, giant lizard monster. Kirk fights him. Your death will be quick and painless. Anyway, so in the episode Arena, all right, the Enterprise crew thinks they're beaming down to Cestus 3, which is a Federation colony. They're looking forward to getting there because the head of the colony sets a good table, and they beam down and they find out the colony has been utterly destroyed. And more than that, the Enterprise has been duped into coming there. And they think they've been talking to people in the colony, but they haven't. And then you find out they've been attacked. So there is a formidable alien presence that we don't know who they are. And so the ship that does this, they leave, and the Enterprise is in hot pursuit. But this ship is very advanced, and it's proving to be difficult to overtake. And they pass through an unknown star system, and both ships are stopped cold by an alien race. And the alien race take the captain of the Gorn ship. We find out it's a Gorn. It's a giant lizard monster, and Kirk. And they have to fight to the death, and whoever wins will be spared. Now, what's really interesting about all of that is there's a lot of tropes in there. Military ideas of tactics and strategies and sneak attacks, things that are analogous to our real world. But at the end of the day, what ends up happening after this Mortal Kombat is happening, and you as the audience, when I was a kid, I remember the first time watching this, it was very profoundly affecting to me. I wanted Kirk to once he figures out how to make a cannon using the chemicals. I wanted Kirk to kill that Gorn. Kill him. Kill that stupid lizard monster. They killed all those people. And at the minute of giving the death blow, Kirk says, "You know what? Not going to do it. I'm not going to kill the Gorn. We're not going to kill today. I'm not going to kill the Gorn." Because he realizes, Kirk's like, maybe you thought you were protecting your own territory. We don't know. Like, we're not the final arbiters of what's going on out in the universe. We don't know. So I'm not going to kill you. Maybe you thought you're defending your territory. And because of that choice, the Metron shows up, the aliens that stopped him cold, and the Metron's like, huh, we scanned your record banks. We scanned both of your record banks. We scanned your ships, and we didn't see that you had a quality of mercy in you. And because of that, do you think we should destroy the Gorn? Kirk's like, no. And I remember thinking about that as a kid, watching that episode, being profoundly moved and realizing, there's two sides to every story. That was an important lesson to learn from Star Trek. But the thing is, I had to learn that story. I had to learn, the episode showed me this tale. It didn't tell me what to think. The Metron says, hey, we didn't know you had a quality of mercy, and you just showed us this. And we're surprised by that. So we're going to let you live. We'll send you back, and if you want us to destroy the Gorn ship, we will. And he's like, nope. Please send the captain back to the Gorn ship and let them go on their way. And to me, that was a great Star Trek story. And that, as a kid, it was revelatory to me. And I'm like, oh, my God, wow. And I was thinking about that, like, because I wanted Kirk to kill the Gorn. And the way the story is set up, you expect him to. And I can only imagine for audience in the 60s, they're like, kill that guy, kill that creature. And when he doesn't, first of all, he's rewarded for not doing it. He's rewarded for different thinking. But it shows you that even at the moment of when Kirk was going to just kill this thing, he doesn't do it. And that, to me, is a profoundly, that exemplifies what Star Trek is all about. And I think that Star Trek is mean-spirited now. I think that the way it people just get murdered in every episode, they've turned Star Trek into a very cynical, very dark, it's antithetical to the universe that I want to live in. And the fact that it's become a story that's all about this one particular person who I don't particularly think is a very good person. And I think she's self-righteous, and she goes around the universe trying to tell everybody what to do with themselves. She would have killed the Gorn. Michael Burnham would have killed the Gorn. And I think that's my fundamental problem with what Star Trek is. And how can it be fixed? I think you need, I think, look, how is Star Wars fixed? You get people that are passionate about the subject matter. Other than Kirsten Beyer, who writes beautiful Star Trek novels, the people that are working on that show, and John Ottman, they brought him in to save the series because it wasn't really working. He came in and oversaw season 3. The people that are working on the show, it's just a gig. They're not necessarily particularly great science fiction writers, or their backgrounds don't show that. And I think the problem with Star Trek is the problem with anything. These long-running franchises, you've got to have people that both love the franchise and also have the clout and the ability to get stuff done. People always say to me, they either say, oh, you've alienated yourself from Star Trek. Look, I have never worked on a network show or any television show in any capacity where I would be hired to work on one now. I directed and edited 5 episodes of a Skinemax show called Femme Fatales that we shot in 3 days. These were designed to be what they were. They were better than most of the late night Skinemax fare that was airing. That is my only experience with television. And when people say, oh, you're alienated or blackballed from Star Trek, that might very well be. But I have never worked at that level. I've never worked at the level to be anywhere near a Star Trek TV show. I have never done that. I think I could do a very good job as somebody who's produced films and done productions overseas. I'll tell you one thing, I could run a tight ship. But the thing I would be most interested in is crafting the writing of the stories. I've never written for TV. No one's going to let me in a TV writer's room. And if they did let me in a TV writer's room, they're not going to listen to me. So That's just the way of the business. It's not me putting myself down or anything, but that's just how the business works. However, I would put together quite the writing room. Yes, I would. And there's people if you ask me in 5 minutes, I'm not going to say it now, but if you ask me in 5 minutes to give you 10 people that you would hire on your writing staff, and we will hire all 10 of those people, I would give you the best science fiction. Of course, a lot of those people, some of them are, heading up their own shows, but I would give you the best science fiction writing staff ever. So can Star Trek be fixed, Matt? I think the people that are making Star Trek now think they're doing just fine, and they're locked in with their contracts, whether it's Section 31, now we've got Strange New Worlds going, more Discovery. They're not going to give up anything, which is too bad. What are you going to do? The Richard said, yeah, YouTube saw you as a Trump enabler, believe it or not. That's why they stopped you appearing on Recommended. Did they? I don't know that for a fact. Maybe. You might argue people stop being interested, but look at all the engagement you're getting lately. Just how it flies, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's so strange to me. There are some people over on a specific group that have a problem with me because of my involvement with Axanar. And a lot of people don't understand that, my involvement was with Axanar. When we made Prelude to Axanar, the short film, it went great. I thought if you want to make a movie, there's a certain process you have to go through. Prelude to Axanar showed me that process was tremendous, and then most of the people that were involved in that process were then subsequently not involved. So, you might be right. I can't believe that anybody thinks I'm a Trump enabler. Anybody that knows me knows I have no love for Donald Trump. And more than that, I've never liked Donald Trump since back in the 80s. I read The Art of the Deal. I've always thought Trump was kind of a chaotic, quixotic figure. And I've never been, but yet I've been branded, I guess, because other people who've been branded alt-right or things. I was called alt-right and a Nazi this year by people that I worked with because of one tweet I made that was misinterpreted by them. And I'm like, wow, this is the 580th episode of this show. I have multiple podcasts. I've been on YouTube for 5 years. I've made a film myself that I wrote and directed. I have things I've edited. The idea that anybody would think I'm alt-right, or it was just, to me, it was rather shocking. And then all the people that I work with apparently all hated my guts because they came out of the woodwork and said all these things. I was like, wow, you guys. I mean, I'm just trying to have fun playing a character in your fun little thing that we've done. But that, to me, was that was a lesson I learned in 2020. Because you realize that you think that you're on YouTube all the time or that you're accessible to people that they know you. They don't. Not only that, they don't even want to learn. And to this day, I'm still being tarred and feathered with that brush. But whatever. I guess that's what life is all about. All you can do, again, what I talked about in the beginning of this episode, all you can do is allow your work to speak for itself. You can't defend it as much as you might want to. You just have to let it lie. You just have to let it stay. I have 580 episodes of this show and the other shows I go on to that will tell you exactly what you need to know about me. And I'm not hiding. So maybe that is true. It is unfortunate considering what we're trying to do here. I've got an Intergalactic Imagination Conisseurs Film Festival. I got people sending me movies from around the world, and I can't get the kind of engagement from YouTube to let anybody know that they're out there. So part of the reason I want to spend the next 2 weeks before I make any announcements about is to get these movies seen. Now I got everybody to make the movies. I thought we were going to get a lot more views on them, but now my job for the next 2 weeks is to get the Intergalactic Imagination Conisseurs Film Festival seen. My goal is I want 10,000 views on every single movie, at least. So that's going to be my goal. And maybe it's a pie in the sky goal, But it has been unfortunate that whenever YouTube was doing to my channel in October and November was also during the time I was getting these film festival movies in, and it was choking off, I think, whatever happened. I don't know about the algorithm or whatever, because I had steady growth until October, November, right when I started to get film festival movies in. And I don't think that would be it. I mean, fostering that kind of creativity has been amazing. The films have been amazing. They're still amazing. I've got still more that you haven't seen that are amazing for what they are. In 2 months, people made movies. It was amazing. And I really want to get more people on it. So that's so weird. A Trump enabler. Maybe they did. I don't know why they would think that, but that's odd. The Great One, Ricky B became a member. Thank you, Ricky. The Great One says, Stubble is right. The Dresden Files are awesome and right up your alley. Don't judge the books by that awful TV series. It doesn't do it justice by a long shot. Yeah, I've heard that. I need to get one of those. Johnny Long said, how do I get a timestamp of my question so I can send it to my dad, Rob? I guess you'd have to just watch the show back. I never I mean, I don't even know. And all the time, I don't know can I timestamp things? I don't know if I can. Can I timestamp stuff? I don't really know, to be honest. Richard sends in a tip and says, great show today. Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Richard goes on to say, I liked when you read that Inverse article the other day. Bo and Eric remind me of writers where writing serves their ego rather than serves the audience. I don't think Jon Favreau is a good writer, but he wants to serve us rather than himself. Yeah, to me, here's part of my Trek fandom that I guess is hard for people to understand. So my whole life I've been steeped in Star Trek. When we started getting Star Trek novels, and there was always Star Trek novels when I was growing up, but after when pocketbooks took over the franchise, and you had certain writers like Diane Duane coming in and writing The Wounded Sky, which was a great science fiction story, but also great Star Trek, and Vonda McIntyre writing The Entropy Effect. And so I was reading these novels by science fiction writers that were actually very, very good. And at the same time, there was some of the DC Star Trek comics were great stories. So I've been inundated. I have not thousands, but probably 1,000 Star Trek novels. And I would say of those, 100 of them are really, really good. So I've been reading great or watching or seeing great Star Trek stories my whole life. And has all of Star Trek been great? Certainly not. I don't think any of the Next Generation movies are as good as they should have been. And I think part of the problem with that is, unfortunately, the Star Trek franchise, for various reasons, has never been treated. It's always been the bargain basement version of a film franchise, because after Star Trek the Motion Picture, which had a lot of development costs of other projects like Planet of the Titans in Phase 2, rolled into its budget, and then it was exorbitantly expensive because the effects team had no time because they fired the original effects team. So they made it a bargain basement franchise at the theatrical level until the JJ movies. And when J.J. Abrams came in, Star Trek was turned into just another action-adventure science fiction franchise, and it cost a lot of money. They figured Star Trek is not the same as Star Wars. It never will be. Star Trek is not the four-quadrant, it's not the four-quadrant populist franchise that Star Wars is. It's totally different. And, the idea that you'd spend $200 million on a Star Trek movie, $150 million even, the amount of money that Into Darkness, Star Trek 09, Into Darkness and Beyond, the amount of money they spent on those movies, you were never going to make your money back. You want to make a great Star Trek movie, spend $75 million. That's what you're looking at. And I know they probably on Nemesis, but you need to focus on that. And let's see. But yes, there you go. 501 sent, Rob is a Trump enabler. He gives unbiased opinions. I don't know. But what's so strange to me too is that, rightly or wrongly, whether you liked Trump or not, he was the president of the United States. He was elected president of the United States. He won the election. So it's so strange to me that we live in a world where being a supporter, I am not a supporter. And when I say this, let me clarify that what I'm about to say is I'm not a Trump supporter, as everyone knows. But he is the president, the duly elected president of the United States. And it's odd to me that platforms like YouTube and a lot of platforms, I understand, I won't get into the politics of it all, but there are a lot of people that voted for him. And if you look at the people that voted for him in this recent election, there were a lot of them, more than ever before, that voted for him. And that is something you have to ask yourself, okay, why would you choke off people that have opinions about Trump or people that are Trump supporters? There's a reason why they are Trump supporters. And I would say that people on my side of the aisle, and I will say this, I've only ever voted Democratic, but I consider myself, if I want to be, independent. But I think the real problem, again, that we have in this country is we can't talk to each other. And one side vilifying the other side. I can't stand when people are like, the libtard Dems, or then on our side, it's just the reduction of discourse, political discourse and social discourse in this country has been dumbed down so far, that we're never going to get anything done. We're supposed to be the leaders of the free world here in the United States. We can't do shit. We can't make anything happen. This country is so divided. We need to start talking to people. And the left, the Democrats, we need to understand why so many people are Trump supporters. And if they are, how are we going to bring them back to the fold? We can't call those people deplorables. Why would you talk to somebody who's called you a deplorable? We've got to figure out our common ground and work from there. You know, everybody wants good education. Everybody wants clean water. Everybody wants less taxes. Everybody wants, to make ends meet. There are things that bond us together as Americans, and we better get our act together really fast and learn how to talk to each other, because the world needs the United States to be divided no longer. We need to be a strong nation of people that can celebrate one another's differences and move forward together and find out what are our things that we all agree on, rather than spending all this time. I mean, it's just it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and we need to figure it out. So, if people who support Trump are being squelched on YouTube, well, that's not good. That's fascistic is what it is. And we need to figure out how to talk to each other. You can time step your stream, says Danny Boy, but don't ask me how. I don't have a clue. Johnny Long says, I want to make my own YouTube video editing your answers to my question and use it to tell my dad how much I live through you and Star Wars, okay? You know what? Please do. You can. I have software. You can just rip any YouTube video down and cut it together. I give you full credit. Or go ahead. Go forth. And I think that would be a good thing. And tell your dad, clearly he's done a fine job raising his son. So there you go. Matt Lyons says, never read any Star Trek books. Where should I start? A very good question. First of all, you have to ask yourself, what is your favorite series? What is your favorite Star Trek series? And let's say if it's the original series, what you want to find is really great standalone adventures that you would enjoy. There's a lot of great stuff. For instance, if you're a fan of the Mirror Universe, and you know your Mirror Universe, and you know Mirror, David Mack wrote 2 different books. He wrote The Sorrows of Empire, and he wrote Rise Like Lions. Those 2 books deal with the Mirror Universe going all the way into from the end of the Mirror episode, the original series, into the future. They're just great books. And they have canonical fealty. They're so full of rich detail. You'll read those books and you'll be like, why aren't they adapting these books? Like, the funny thing to me is they've got all of this incredible material about the Mirror Universe that they can draw upon. It's already there. They already own it. Like, go get that. If you love the original series, a great book, Prime Directive, written by Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens. The book opens with the Enterprise in pieces and Kirk imprisoned. Fantastic book, if you like that. By the same authors, Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens, they wrote a crossover book that came out before Generations called Federation. That is a fantastic novel. If you want something, say, less heady, There's a book called Q Squared that Peter David wrote. That's crazy. It's about Q and all kinds of different time-traveling shenanigans. There's a lot of books. If you're a Deep Space Nine fan, Andrew Robinson wrote a book called The Stitch in Time, a book about Garrick. But those are good places to start. It'd be hard to know what you'd want to read. I'd have to have I'd have to know what you love about Star Trek more, but there's a lot. So Johnny Long says, I'm inspired, Rob. This is what Star Wars does. I owe this credit to you in so many ways as well. Well, that's very nice of you to say, Johnny. That's what this is all about. If you like my bubbling enthusiasm, well, then you've come to the right place. So that's what I like. The Richard is here. The Richard. My moderator sent me a super chat and says the Richard is happy to celebrate his 1 year anniversary with the PGS. Has it been 1 year? My God, I can't. That's amazing. Well, thank you. We're great. It's great to have you, Richard, or the Richard. You're an invaluable part of the community, and I thank you for all the tireless work that you've done. And I should mention, you can always go find the Richard over on the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page or the Whining About Movies Facebook page. Tom Jr. Jackson sends in a super chat and says, if Rob is a Trump enabler, then I am Mickey Mouse. Congrats on 2 years of YouTube, sir. Well, wait a minute. I've been on YouTube actually since April of 2015, but I was on Collider Heroes and the John Campy Show. But this show turned 2 years old. This show, the live chat show, turned 2 years old on December 15th. But thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I can't believe this show is 2 years old. I can't believe it. And I'm still doing it. It's fun. You know, and lately there's been a lot of people who have been disparaging of this show. But let me just say that, and me personally, and that's fine. You can be that. But aren't we having a good time? I think so. Johnny Long says, like most of my families, my dad and I aren't together on Christmas. This is going to be my digital gift to him. Well, that's fantastic. I don't know if Johnny Long is your actual name, but I would say, Dad, your son Johnny Long, he's thinking. Here you go. So this is personal and confidential to Johnny Long's dad. Johnny Long's dad. Let me just say, my name is Robert Burnett. I have a YouTube channel called Robservations that your son frequents, and he has contributed to, and he's supported this channel. And I just want to say, it's the people like him who are thoughtful, who love the genre. They get something out of Star Wars and Star Trek and Flights of Fancy. We like to call them imagination connoisseurs right around these parts. And I just want to say, if the world were full of more people like your son, the world would be a much better place. Kudos to you, sir, on this holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I hope 2021 treats you and your family the way you want to be treated, and hopefully in unexpected ways too. So thanks very much for creating your son and bringing him up in the proper fashion. So there you go. There's editorial material for you, Johnny. Ben Johnson says, Rob, I love you, man, but it's not realistic to expect Americans to be loving and functional in a dysfunctional system. Yeah, but Ben, we've created the system. You know, the American people, our government is supposed to be by the people and for the people. And if our government is dysfunctional, it's up to us to get involved and change the system. I think the problem with Americans are we've become too cynical. Fight the power. We've actually seen, we saw a lot happen in the wake of George Floyd. We saw people rise up. We saw people start. Look, we don't need people rioting in the streets and burning down buildings and businesses and all that. That isn't. Eventually, you're gonna wind up. You're gonna look around and go, "Wait a minute, why aren't they picking up the garbage? How come there's no more food?" Well, it's because you've turned this into a war zone, and this is not really constructive. And you're not thinking about your fellow man. Your ideology, you have only been thinking about yourself, and you're not. I mean, we got to stop doing that. We need to start figuring these things out. And that old adage, think locally, act, or think globally, act locally. We need to start thinking about that. And Americans created this. There isn't some overlord system. I mean, we elect the representatives. Our government is made up of us. Is it a dysfunctional system? Well, perhaps, but it's up to us to fix it. And that's what we need to do. And I think that, is that going to be hard? Yes. It is hard, but it is dysfunctional. And it's going to get more dysfunctional because we are too divided. We have to start going, okay, what is it that we want? And we can't make a list of 20,000 demands and you're going to expect to change hundreds of years of human history. You can't do that. You have to think, like, what is it we can do now? How can we start making small, incremental, meaningful change now? How can we start? And you know where that begins? That begins not calling everybody libtard Democrats or deplorable Trump supporters. Let's start there. I mean, why not go up to somebody and go, "Oh, you voted for Donald Trump," without disparaging someone. Go, "I'm curious, what is it about Donald Trump's presidency and his policies that attracted you to him? And I, of course, voted for somebody else. How is it that I can help you achieve the things that you're looking for out of a Trump presidency?" Like, why don't we sit down? Because the funny thing is, if you have a neighborhood of, let's say you have whatever your neighborhood is, and if there's something that you need help for, I'll bet you that you could find people in your neighborhood, whoever they voted for. Let's say you needed somebody to help you change a tire. Or, if you were living in an Amish community but raise a barn or something. Whatever you needed help for, I bet you could find people from very different ideological perspectives. Come on, and because Americans are good at this. They're like, "Oh, here's a task that we can all complete. There's nothing ideological about it. It's like, we have to fix this tire, or can you help me frame my house?" Whatever it is, I don't know. But probably everybody in your neighborhood would come over and go, "Oh, I'll help you do that." And that's where you have common ground. In these ideological issues, we can't even talk to each other anymore. That's where we have to start. We have to start and figure out, how do we talk to one another? That's how we have to start. I mean, it seems easy to me. We find the things that we all need to fix. What are the things that we like in our own communities? What do we need to change? Let's go change those things together, because these are actual things. Okay, we need to make sure this happens. We want a park, or we want this, or we want that. And we all figure out what common, and sure, there's going to be people like, "I don't want that." Well, why don't you want that? We'll figure it out. We got to start talking to each other. This divide, it cripples our government. It cripples our communities. It cripples everybody. We just have to figure out how to talk to one another. Sean M says, "I truly dislike when people say catchphrases like democrat or deplorable. Stop. Give me an argument, not this BS." How about not an argument? How about sit down and go, "Yo, man, why don't we all sit down, have a few beers, let's talk about this, and I want to find out, what are you thinking? And let me tell you what I'm thinking." And just listen to people. Grace Randolph's hair is back and sends, "She's here." Does that mean Grace Randolph is here? I like Grace Randolph. I've never met Grace Randolph. I was talking about her earlier. Darth Grimdark sends in a super chat and says, "I can't get enough of the physical media show. The enthusiasm you and Dieter show for your pickups is great. When can I get a physical media t-shirt?" Oh, they're available. As a matter of fact, if you want a physical media allow me, hang on. Let me send you a link. I never do this because I always forget that I have I have this. So let me log in, and I will send you to my store. It's funny because I did make these, and Dieter didn't even know that they existed. And I go, "Hey, man, yeah. So okay, here you go. Here's the TeePublic storefront. They make pretty good shirts, and they're cheap. Wow, we've sold 3 physical media t-shirts. Here. Let me put that in the chat. So here you go. Here is the TeePublic link where you can get yourself a t-shirt of Let's Get. I like that shirt too. I haven't bought one. I need to buy one. There's also, now this is different from the merch that you can see on the YouTube channel. That's a different company, but I haven't made a physical media shirt there yet. But so there you go. You can get a shirt there. Rob Altus sent in a super chat and says, "Congrats, Rob, on 2 years. I found you because of Gary. Everything he said about you is true. Enjoy your channel immensely." Gary Beekler, again, I like Gary Beekler a lot, and I have to say, Gary Beekler talking a lot about what's happened in San Francisco and all of that is, I think, worth listening to, and because it happened, So there you go, and that you enjoy the channel immensely. I want to thank Gary. I have to say that one of the things that happened to me this year that was very interesting is people that I knew that I work with suddenly decided, based on they thought I was look, and I've explained it, and I was very angry about what happened to David Dorn, Captain David Dorn, when I saw the video of him dead on the sidewalk, and how here was a man, he was 75 years old, father of 5, grandfather of 10, was trying to protect a business and was gunned down. And I was really angry. So I saw this video that somebody put on, and I retweeted the video, and I was like, "That you want outrage, motherfuckers?" I'm like, "Look at this. Where's the people? Where your Second Amendment? Shoot to kill." What I was trying to convey, I didn't do a good job of it, was that if someone had deadly force, they could have saved that man's life. By all accounts, a good man, a family man who's no longer here, because he was protecting somebody's businesses. I was not advocating shooting looters. There was nobody that was there to loot that store. Armed robbers went to specifically rob that store under the cover of protests. And that's what I was saying. Deadly force. Where are the Second Amendment people with their deadly force when somebody like David Dorn needs to be protected and is protecting a business? That's what I was saying. That tweet was removed from the video it was with, retweeted, and everybody was saying that I was a right-wing gun nut that advocated killing looters. Well, if you took my tweet out, it was out of context, obviously. And, RB3, who I've worked with, who's shot me a lot, who I thought kind of pretty much knows that my character is an act, he was calling me on this and accusing me of things, and I said to him, and this was what I was mostly, the thing I was mostly sorry for, is I said, "Fuck you" to him. I said, "Fuck you" to somebody that I work with and that I respected. He busts his ass. And that was what I said. Then people were calling me back immediately going, "Are you saying kill loot?" I'm like, wait a minute. Then I realized I needed to apologize because I didn't know people were retweeting my words. And I'm like, well, you've now taken what I've said out of context when you detach it from the video. And I made an apology video. The whole thing took about 30 minutes from the time I made that original tweet to the time I put up my video about those situations. And I mostly was sorry about the fact that I said "fuck you" to a colleague publicly, which I shouldn't have done, and also how it came off. You can watch the video. You can watch the apology video I made. And I realized everybody was heated. I was heated. But it really disturbed me that a 75-year-old man gets gunned down protecting who had a rich life and still probably had a lot of life left in front of him. And he didn't deserve it. Like, nobody does. But the way he was now fodder for videos, it really disturbed me. It really, really disturbed me. Rob Altus said, "By the way, I love the shirt. Either my shirt, my American International Pictures logo shirt, or the actual Let's Get Physical Media shirt. I love them both." But thanks for that, Rob. Sean M said, "I do listen. I do dismiss most of what I hear because it's stupid." Yeah, but you can't, be that as it may, you have to ask yourself then, why do people believe what they believe? And there's a lot of people believe certain things, and you still have to be able to sit down and talk to them. And if you approach it with the attitude like somebody is stupid, you're already being prejudicial against their opinions. And they might very well be stupid according to you, but you have to say, like, look, these are still people that believe what they believe. And they're here, and you can't pretend they're not here. And so what we got to do is we all have to figure out, like, okay, I don't like what they believe. They might come off as being stupid. So let's find a place, let's find an entryway where we can talk to people about what they care about. And we can you've got to find some common ground. And I think that takes work and effort. And we have to find that common ground. And that's where you begin the conversation. I've told this story so many times. Well, I won't get it, but that's what I think. Torn Atkinson says, I heard about a cool film coming called Ruined Nation. Yes, you have, and it is actually very cool. I was very impressed by it. You will see that very shortly. Yeah, and I'm doing something quite interesting with your trailer, because I have two animated trailers, and then I actually have a film for one. That's Torn's movie. So yes, Torn, you will be seeing Ruined Nation very shortly, which I very much enjoyed. I thought it was great. Jason S., and I love that it was really cool. Jason S. says, why is no one constantly branded a Biden enabler or a Gavin Newsom enabler? Well, that's a good question, Jason. That is a good question. I would ask you, why do you think that's the case? I again, do I think what's going on in California is so great? Nope. I don't necessarily think it's so great. But, in terms of there is a lot of, look, regardless of what you think, our president, current president, Donald Trump, has spent a lot of money, our taxpayer money, going to his own resort, Mar-a-Lago, and golfing there. Now, if nothing else, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, I personally don't think that's an appropriate expenditure of either the president's time or money. If he accepts the presidency, I understand all presidents have had to have leisure time and all of that, but the fact that our president has multiple businesses that benefited from our tax dollars while he was president is problematic. Now, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever, now people would say, well, why? Because the office of the presidency, it's just, there's a reason why the president isn't paid tens of millions of dollars to be president. Donald Trump had that ability, and there's a lot of money that has been spent on his businesses via taxpayer money. I think that's, if nothing else, if that's the only thing, I think that is problematic, and our president did nothing to not show that kind of impropriety. I think it was improper, and I think that's something that is. I also think pulling out of things like environmental accords or environmental protection to promote business is necessarily not a great thing either. Now, those are just two different things. Now, I would say that for me, I have been shocked by the short-term thinking of big business when it comes to environmental protection. I understand it is antithetical to business to spend money on things like, why should I be spending money? Why should I cut into my profits making sure that our groundwater is fresh or whatever? Because we're very good at putting off these problems. We are putting off problems that are going to come bite us in the ass. And I think it is. Look, I like the fact that the Great Pyramids are here. I've said that before. I think our world, we need to start thinking about our worlds beyond our own lifespan. I've heard people that are Republicans, I've heard them say, why should I care about these things? Older Republicans, why should I care about these things? I'm not going to be here anyway. That, to me, is a problematic way of thinking, because we have to start thinking, our mindset needs to be that humanity is a continuum that is going to continue on. It was here before we got here. That's why we're here in the first place. So you owe a debt of gratitude to everybody that came before you, and that hopefully, as a result of being alive, you'll realize that you have an obligation to the generations that come after you. If you liked the life that you had, if you enjoyed the time that you spent on this planet, you should be mindful of the fact that there were billions of other people that were here before you that allowed you to exist, and that there hopefully are going to be billions of other people after you, and you need to make sure that, it's the campground philosophy. You always leave a campground in better shape than you found it. And I think we don't have that mindset. It's, we're here for a little bit of time. Let's get as much as we can. Take. And then when we leave, fuck all everybody else. Who cares? We got to get rid of that mindset. And I think that we really have to start thinking that way as a race. I go back, and there is one race on this planet, one race of people, the human race. And what makes us interesting is all the different things that make us all uniquely individual. And we are individuals, and we need to start respecting that too. But that's just me. And to me, that is ultimately what Star Trek was about. It's about the fact that humanity, and Roddenberry writes this down in the Next Generation Story Bible. He said, look, humanity has gotten over all of the things, there are petty differences, the craziness that we put up with. We have moved beyond those things, because that's what's allowed us to move out amongst the stars. And allegorically, it's the people that we met out there that can represent the problems that we had of the day. But the very premise of Star Trek is that people have moved beyond our petty differences. And my problem with Star Trek now is that I don't find the characters that I'm being given, they seem like modern day characters of today that act in a manner that is not very enlightened. And that's what I find problematic. To me, Star Trek always represented human beings that were enlightened people, and they knew they needed one another to accomplish a goal. And Kirk needed Spock and McCoy. Kirk was not Space Messiah. But back to your question, Jason, I think the idea you have to ask yourself is at the end of the day, what is it we want? Do we want to have elected officials that we're going to spend, tearing down for however long? I don't think that's productive either. Ricky Burnett, I wonder if we're related. One of my favorite Star Trek books was a 3-book series by David R. George III, Crucible. Those were in McCoy, Providence of Shadows, my favorite of the 3. That was a good series, and that was a good book. I like that book very much as well. I agree with you. Jason S. says, David Dorn died in the Black Lives Matter racist riots. Black Lives Matter, which is a black supremacist front, have caused billions of dollars in property damage during the past year, which is more property damage than Muslim supremacists have caused on U.S. soil since 9/11. That might very well be true. But the fact of the matter is that black Americans have never been truly equal in this country. Black Americans have been putting up ever since they were brought here against their will, sold into bondage. We have never had a truly free and equal black population in this country. They have to deal with casual racism every day of their lives. And the thing is, Black Lives Matter is a result. If you're going to mistreat a population for 400 fucking years, the chickens are going to come home to roost. And until we have that, and again, Black Lives Matter is a result of hundreds of years of oppression that we've paid lip service to as a nation, but we've never truly come to grips with that. How are we going to do that? Better people than I know. I don't know the answers. But I know that, when you watch this kind of thing happen over and over again, and the George Floyd video, that's a pretty graphic representation, whether you're black or white or yellow or green or pink polka dotted. When you're watching a police officer kneel on the neck of a man, forget what color he is. Unfortunately, black Americans have had to deal with this a lot more in their lives than other groups in this country. When you're watching a man literally straight up murdered on video, what are you supposed to do? Black supremacy, maybe we need that. Maybe that's what needs to happen before cooler heads prevail and say, okay, do I believe in property destruction? No, I don't. I think that's counterproductive as well. But again, I'm not. I get it's not my purview. I do entertainment and Star Trek and Twilight Zone and UFO and Space 1999 and all those things. I do not know enough about the issues. All I can say is that as a Star Trek fan, there's a lot of grievances that people have that we have yet to ever deal with. And we don't deal with them because there's no initial money involved. Our real problem in this country is that so often the powers that be, it's always about profit. And at the end of the day, we're eroding away the foundational, the foundations of the American population is our people, is the everyman. It's the men, the women on the street that make up our country. And at every turn, big business and money and all of that will sacrifice our people at the altar of the almighty profit. And what happens is you're eventually going to erode away the entire foundation, and it's all going to collapse in on itself for everybody, the 1%ers and the people that have nothing. And we need to start figuring out a way to prioritize. Look, as I've always said, our country needs great education and great health care. That is the foundational principles of what our civilization should be about. Great health care and great education. And we're getting neither. And it is eroding away the very fabric of our society. These should be a national security issue. Period. But I more property damage than Muslim supremacists have. I wouldn't say that because, if you go back, what did we get this year? We got the TV series Watchmen that told a lot of people that had never heard of them before what happened in Tulsa, Black Wall Street. I mean, straight up an entire community massacred and burned to the ground on American soil. It was a terrorist act committed against one of our populations by another population right here in America, and nobody knew about it. But something 2020 brought us was that. So, I mean, yes, you can look at the fact, you can get mad at Black Lives Matter for what they were doing. You can look at the fact that what's going on in Portland, I think it's still going on, or what happened in Seattle, all that was terrible. But those are all just results of problems that we have refused to deal with. And it's going to continue. Because the problems, the response, those are all reactions to ongoing systemic problems we have in America that usually come from the fact that we're not, because if something doesn't have profitability, we don't fix it. But sometimes if we fix things that aren't initially profitable on a spreadsheet, might 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road prove to be very profitable because they've brought a community together and made it more vibrant. Like, why aren't we sending great teachers into the worst school districts in the country and giving them the money they need to inspire kids and bring back those communities, starting at the very foundational levels of education? Why aren't we putting tons of money into education? Because there's no initial return. But there will be maybe 10 years down the road, but we don't think that way. What if we took a poor, our poorest communities and start pouring money into those communities and getting those people as educated as they can? There's some communities that for generations have been poor, and they have no hope. The kids don't see another way. Oh, I'm never going to amount to anything. Well, we could fix that if we wanted to, but we don't. Why not? That's why we're going to have uprisings and the things that happen, because you don't fix the problems. We got to fix the problems. Sean M. sends in a super chat and says, Nerdrotic is wrong. He's angry about his wife's hairdressing business being shut down. He tweets in support of the New Jersey gym jerks. He's a pure a-hole. Well, see, but Sean, I disagree with that. And he should be angry about his wife's hairdressing business being shut down. He should. Elizabeth, who I live with, her business was completely shut down. And she moved her salon into here. She sees clients, even though in our house during lockdown, she couldn't see any clients. The government said you can't do it. That's half our livelihood. And we have 2 teenage girls here that basically a family and 2 dogs. And half of our livelihood was cut. It just went away in an instant. Now, when people lose their livelihoods, what do you expect them to do? It's not like someone said, okay, well, my business that I've been working on building for 15 years was suddenly eliminated. Of course people are going to be angry. Well, what are people then supposed to do? And that's what's happening in this country. We did not have leadership at the top. And I'm not saying that President Trump had to fix it for everybody, but, we had all these businesses closed and people are looking around going, well, now what do we do? And they look to our leadership to know, because they don't know. They're like, I'm a small business owner. I have a restaurant, or I have a hair salon. What do I do? What do I do? And there should have been plans in place. There should have been things that could have happened. Giving people stimulus checks is not, giving people money is not necessarily the cure all, the end all. It doesn't help. It's a temporary fix. What we need to know is, how can we get people's businesses working again, even during a global pandemic? Do we just lock down? Well, did that work? In California, it worked for a while. But, I mean, if you look at how other countries dealt with the outbreak, we didn't do what they did. And I think he's right to be mad. And I'll tell you something. You might not agree with every single thing that Gary Beekler says. You don't have to. And you could, but I will tell you this. I know from my perspective, he's been a good person to me, and he's been complimentary to me, and he's the kind of person, if I came to Gary and I said, hey, man, I have this idea. I want to do some kind of community outreach to the fans. We want to support this. We want to support that. Gary Beekler has been out there trying to fight the good fight for comic book stores. We know a lot of independent comic book store owners here on this channel. And while I think people are never one thing or another, there are many different facets to people. And what we've started to do is paint everybody. We want to paint them one color and say that this person's like this. I'm not going to deal with them. Well, people are nuanced, and people have all kinds of different viewpoints, and everybody's a little bit different. And now we've gotten to this point where that guy's an asshole, let's get rid of him. Well, that's not an option. And I think that it's important. I mean, my experience of Gary is different than your experience of Gary. That doesn't mean that Gary Beekler should be dismissed and tossed off a cliff. He has very real concerns. His wife was building a great business in a tough market, San Francisco, and that you can't dismiss that and say, well, he shouldn't be pissed about that. Well, yeah, he should. He should be pissed about that, because that kind of thing didn't have to happen. How many Americans are in line at food banks? We don't have any ICU beds in California right now, or Southern California at least. This is problematic, and everything is nuanced, and I think we've just. What we have to do is be able to talk to each other, communicate, so everybody knows what's going on. And then as Americans, what are we best at? Americans are best. What can I do? Maybe we can send people money from the privacy or the confines of our houses, but what can we do to help? What can we do to help? I mean, how many videos did we watch of women screaming or men screaming they're not going to wear a mask? And everyone tells me, well, I'll tell you something else. Here's how I know that wearing masks is beneficial. That's one way you can cough. Or, let's say I don't have it anymore. I'm looking for I don't have it here. Well, let's just assume this piece of paper, what is this? Let's assume this piece of paper is a mask. What's better? I mean, obviously when I cough without a mask on, it's worse than when I have a mask on. That's just common sense. Anyway, Attacatch Sound sends in a super chat and says, Prime recommended. Oh, Chesley Bonsall documentary, Brush with the Future. Okay, Chesley Bonsall is... I learned who he was. Chesley Bonsall painted incredible vistas of space. And he was very active back in the mid-century. He worked on movies. He painted great space art. And I learned mostly who he was. Starlog magazine used to publish these photo guidebooks. Oh, I love them. They were imagination connoisseur pornography. And Chesley Bonsall was one of he would just paint like looking at Saturn from the moon of Saturn. It was just awesome. And I forgot about this. I've never seen this documentary. Brush with the Future, legendary Hollywood matte painter and space exploration futurist painter. Required imagination connoisseur content. Yes. Now, if this is on Amazon, I got to watch this. Chesley Bonsall, so good. His artwork was so good. But so Starlog published, it was slipcase too. It was one of their only photo guidebooks that was slipcased space art. It was awesome. I looked through that book. I paged through that book forever. I mean, I must have looked through that book 1,000 times. I don't even know what happened to my copy of it. I think when my dad's, when we moved out of his, I moved all my books into he had a storage closet at his condo, and the pipe burst and destroyed like 1,000 of my books. It was probably in there. Attic Hatch Sound sent in another super chat and says, also recommended CQ, a stylish, fun, satirical period piece about the making of a Barbarella-style European sci-fi film. It was directed by Roman Coppola, right? I believe a Coppola directed that movie. Hang on, let me check. Film director? Let's see. I think it is. Roman Coppola. Indeed, Roman Coppola directed CQ. I have seen CQ, and you got to check that out. I highly recommend it. It's a good movie. Richard says, sorry to kick off this political conversation. I just wanted to offer a reason for the sub-suppression. I think you're probably right. Also, we have an epidemic of loneliness in this country. People who had no connections or relationships voted for Trump 5-1 over Biden. Might explain it. Well, see, that's something that we should know. There is an epidemic in this country. Why are middle-aged men killing themselves in record numbers, committing suicide? Well, because of loneliness, and we have the best communication systems we've ever had in our lives, and people are still lonely, and we have to help out. Sean M. said, to whomever sent a message about Black Lives Matter being black supremacists, just say Black Lives Matter 3 times fast and then stop talking. I would tend to agree with that. Sean M. said, Nerdrotic is philosophically opposed to sensible measures. He's nuts. I don't think that's true. And also, remember, when we have these channels out here, you know, when we're doing YouTube, also part of what we're doing is there is an entertainment factor, a shock factor, or something. And Nerdrotic, Gary Beekler is not supposed to be a political pundit. He's talking about things that are happening to him directly. I mean, look at us. We're both surrounded by action figures and books, and I do have a John Lennon figure right there, though. And I think that we you know, he's talking from the hip and he's talking from the heart, and it's not like he's rallying people around him in some political caucus or something like that. And you know, I don't think he's nuts. I grew up around there were people. I had a contingency of a contingent. Can't even speak. I've been talking. I can't believe how late it is. Moderators, thank you for being here. I can't believe you guys are still here. Thank you so much. I like that you're still here. I didn't realize it's 5:30. I've been talking for over 3 hours. This is the most epic stream ever. All because of you guys, you imagination connoisseurs. But I didn't even mention the Seahawks won today. Yeah, we beat Washington, but hey, it's still a victory. 20 to 15. But yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, even if people are nuts, we still have to listen to them and try and figure out, okay, why do you believe the things that you believe, and what can I do? Ask people, what can I do to help you? Is there something I can do? Or is there something we can do? Or is something we can do better yet? What can we do together to alleviate or help solve these problems? Eric Gant. Oh, hello, Eric. Well, Eric, that's very nice of you. Thank you, sir. The Save the Whales movement was never decried as whale supremacy. No one responded with all sea life matters. So protesting the killing of whales is okay, but protesting the killing of people isn't. Yeah, you know what? That's a great point. The problem is, why are we would rather protect if somebody was killing dogs. I mean, I know I would be at the forefront of that. Why are people not held to the same high standards? I mean, why do we not protect people? And especially black Americans. Black Americans, never truly equal, have never been treated equal. I mean, how do you justify that? I mean, anybody can tell you that. Anybody, ask any of your black friends, they'll tell you things like, they'll tell you all kinds of stories and things that you've never even considered. The one that always stuck with me that I used to say all the time is the idea of going into a friend of mine, a black friend of mine, told me this story when I was in college about how he was, I guess he was on a hot date. He was going in and he met a girl and she was coming home with him or something, and he stopped at a convenience store to buy a tube of toothpaste because he ran out of toothpaste. And, it became like this. He was in a convenience store and they were looking at him, and suddenly he's just thinking about getting something. He just wanted some toothpaste, and it turned into an ordeal. He felt like he was being looked at strange and that there were people that were following him around the store. And he told this to me. He was kind of laughing about it, but I thought it was horrifying. And it stuck with me since college. And I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine. I mean, all you're thinking about is getting your freak on, and you just need some toothpaste to make sure the lady that you're with or the guy that you're with or whomever that you're with has a better experience of you. So you're thinking about them, and you're going to go get some toothpaste. And he had this experience in a convenience store where he felt like the cops were about to be called on him. And I was like, I've never worried about buying a tube of toothpaste in my life. And I can't even imagine what that was like. It always stuck with me. And until all people in the United States can walk into a convenience store at 2 o'clock in the morning after the bars have closed and not be treated differently than anyone else, we'll never truly be free. Until any American, and ask any black American, can they go wherever they want, whenever they want? Nope, they can't. And that's why we have to worry about that. And Eric's point is well taken. You want to protest the killing of whales, people will do it. But those uppity parts of our population that, let's not stick up for them. Yeah, we can watch them, one of them get crushed to death, their trachea crushed to death on national television. Oh, well, what did he do wrong? Well, how about grow up in a society where people with his skin color have never been treated equally since the 400 years when they were first dragged here in chains? I mean, you have to take that into consideration. So, Eric, a great point that you're making. We just need to start respecting everybody, and treating people equally, and start thinking about ourselves. Yuval Harari, we are one race of people, the human race, and we have to ask ourselves, what do we want moving forward? What do we want? What do you want? What do you want for your family? What do you want for your community? I know what I want, which is, and not to be glib, but I really believe that this could help, great Star Trek. I think not great Star Trek is ultimately detrimental to the society long term. And look, I'm trying to bring it back to the conversation in a humorous fashion. Sean M. says, Nerdrotic is not being an entertainment figure. When he says what he says, he's not talking from the hip. He says what he really means. Of course he says what he really means. But he says what he really means because San Francisco is a city that has some serious problems. And where he left, if you grow up there, I mean, even I was watching that they're making homeless camps available. Like they were turning the outside of City Hall into a place where you can build homeless camps. And it's like, well, okay, now that the homeless are here, why don't we do things to curtail the homeless problem? I mean, really, do you know that if you want to buy or you want to make low-income housing here in Los Angeles, it's like $500,000 a unit because everybody has to get a taste. All the contractors, everybody, government contracts to build homeless housing, low-income housing, everybody gets a taste. And then there are people that are like, well, we don't want low-income housing in our neighborhoods. And so what do? Everybody needs to get a bite of the apple, and people don't. How are we going to solve our problems? I don't know. I'm not a politician. Richard says, a good demonstration of a mask's effectiveness, Rob, if you have the virus. If you don't and are in vicinity of the virus, especially in cool and dry conditions, a cloth mask isn't as effective. Best to make the upgrade to the N95 at that point. I agree. I agree. A cloth mask isn't as effective. But yes, and I think we should. I absolutely think we should. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry I have not solved the world's problems here on this stream, but what a stream it's been. I can't thank you all enough. I wish, look, my feeling is this. I believe that the interests of the imagination connoisseur, whether it's science fiction, fantasy, horror, comics, video games, I really believe this. The more things that we're exposed to, the more images, the more political concepts, the more things that we're exposed to through what we love. Like what I mean is a political story that's in the guise of science fiction. If you want to contemplate the differences of gender, read something like Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness. Not hands, The Left Hand of Darkness. And it'll make you think about gender in different ways. So when you meet people that might be, say, non-binary or trans, you'll have something more in your head and be maybe more interested in their lives or their plight or their situation because you've read great science fiction. The Twilight Zone is a great place to start. If you watch Twilight Zone episodes, you watch Outer Limits episodes like I did as a kid, it makes you, I think, more inquisitive. You're open to different ideas. And I think what we love as imagination connoisseurs make us people that are a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more, we'll stop and pause and we'll remember our favorite Star Trek episode. So before we're about to, drive a wedge into the giant lizard monster that's trying to kill you because you saw Arena, you might be like, well, when this happened to Kirk, he showed a quality of mercy. And that was probably, have I done that? I think that's what great science fiction and great imagination connoisseur writing does for us. Why I think it's important is my little neck of the woods. What I'm trying to do is share my enthusiasm for all of this material and spread the joy and say, look, I've learned so much, and I've more than anything, I've learned to respect and love the world that we live in for its own sake, for no other reason than other people are amazing and the world around us is amazing. And both are worth preserving. They're worth preserving from now until the end of time. So everybody that came after us can enjoy the lives that they lead for their own sake. And I think ultimately that's why I'm an evangelist of the imagination. There's a new one. I'm the evangelist of the imagination. Maybe that's what I should do. I should wipe away Duke of Dope Discourse and all of the other things I call myself and just say, I am your evangelist of the imagination. Maybe that's what I should do. Because that's what I believe in. And I believe that our imaginations are where all great things that humanity has ever done, they all spring from that. All of it. And being an imagination connoisseur means that your imagination is already open to all of these things. And isn't it great? Isn't it great to be an imagination connoisseur? So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings from across these 28 known galaxies, however you identify, as long as you're an imagination connoisseur, you are welcome here. Even if you're not, drop in and see what it's all about. Kind of like, that song by the Scissor Sisters. You're going to take your mama out. Take your mama. Show her what it's all about. Although I don't believe on getting drunk on cheap champagne. Anyway, Anonymous says, Nerdrotic is great fun to listen to and good at what he does. I wish you would go on Friday Night Tights again. I would. I really like going on Friday Night Tights. And I agree. Look, my whole thing is when you watch people, like when I watch people, I always understand, like I watch people that I don't agree with a lot. And I always try and understand, okay, I don't agree with them, but what are they bringing to the table? And I look for those things. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTubers. I've been watching a lot of, believe it or not, automotive YouTube channels. People like the Stradman. I'm never going to own a supercar. In California, I would never want to. You drive around, they get destroyed. But I like watching the Stradman. He's a kid that buys supercars and loves supercars because just look at the grin on that dude's face. There are two YouTube channels, the Stradman's channel and 3D Bot Maker. Watch the 3D Bot Maker 1/64th scale die-cast car races they put on. I defy anyone to watch 3D Bot Maker's channel and not have it put a smile on your face. I'm serious. Well, anyway, And the Strad man, I don't know why. That guy. He's always got a smile on his face. No one loves his supercars more than he does. And there you go. It's just joy in 10 minutes in a video. But anyway, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my moderators for hanging in there. What a crazy stream this has been. But I do want to thank all of you for supporting the channel, generously supporting the channel. As we move into the week before Christmas, I'll still be doing a bunch of shows. And did I announce? I think I announced that Justin from Justin's channel, my favorite YouTube channel, and Az are going to be doing an epic stream at noon on the 30th of December. That should be fun. I mean, I'm a little afraid I should bring a heart medication because I'm going to geek out so hard my heart's going to explode with joy. So I got to watch out for that. By the way, if you've never gone to Justin's collection on YouTube, if you're interested in hot toys and why I love hot toys, plus he's got this great Australian accent. He's not Russian, he's Australian. Hello. I love listening to him. And I love Elizabeth. He doesn't call it's not action figure with Justin, action figure. Oh, I got a new figure. You gotta it'll put a smile on your face. Watch Justin's channel. Justin's collection is what it's called. And he's gonna be on, and I'm so overjoyed to have him on the stream with Az. I mean, I can't believe I'm actually anticipating doing a YouTube stream with two dudes, one guy in the UK, one guy in Australia, knowing full well that what we're going to talk about is action figures. Like this action figure or like these action figures. I never thought that I would live in a world as a middle-aged man where I would be excited about talking to other middle-aged, well, he's not middle-aged, but talking to other older dudes about action figures. One guy in Australia, one guy in the UK, and me here in California. I mean, if this doesn't make you think that the world is an awesome place, even in the middle of a global pandemic, we're going to talk Hot Toys figures and third-party figures and unlicensed figures, or I should say figures. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. I can't wait until the 30th of December. Anyway, I want to thank all of you. What a stream. What a stream this has been. Anyway, I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to sign off with what I always say, which is, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And be an evangelist of the imagination, too. How about that? And on that note, I have to remind everybody that I'll be back in an hour and a half, not that I've talked enough, with Elizaviews with Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell, the ace, the arbiter of cinematic excellence, as we talk Die Hard. We will answer the eternal question, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Definitively. We talked about it before on what's the show called? Let's Get Physical Media, Dieter Bastian and I. God, I feel like, wow, I did a stream for 2 hours. Now I've done a stream for 3.5, and I'm going to go on again. Amazing. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, however you identify across these 28 known galaxies, this show is ending. This show is ending. I promise. Thank you all for being here. Wow. What a show this has been. Thank you all very, very much. And as always, have a better day.